Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's the TruthWire. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jaradula, and with me, of course, is
Fiorella. And why are you blurry? You look
you know what? There's two things. Number one, I got to clean the camera, which is dirty, and I got to put this down.
Maybe take off your camera for a second and do all that, which you should have been ready before we got started. Give me a second, guys. How are you? Trickle on in for a second because we have a rather important show, and I'm just sharing all of these things right now because I was trying to post some what do you call some of the things we're going to talk about.
Cool.
Because
you share and I'll introduce the you keep sharing and I'll introduce the co-host. How about that, fam?
You can introduce our co-host. Yeah,
Let's do that. It's an amazing show today. We got a lot of things, and I say amazing because there's so much stuff going on, and there's so little honest commentary out there and political analysis, and there's been a lot of duping, a lot of blindfolding, but still things could unfold. But let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong. Usually I'm not. Usually we're not. But let's hope that we're wrong.
You're more wrong than I am. But yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. All right, let's get this going, guys. You know the guy from the homeless left. He's my main man. He's our main man now. He's a documentary filmmaker, a ex-basketball player. We can see his brother hanging out in the chat, Jayme Weinglass. Let's go! His brother here, Matt Weinglass from the homeless left, is with us. How you doing, buddy?
Great, man. How's it going? How are you guys doing today?
Great.
We're good. Matt, how tall are you? I don't know why you seem so small on camera.
Matt's like 5'6".
Yeah. No, actually, believe it or not, Fee, I am 6'7", and that's
more like 6'9".
No, I am.
He's listed at 6'7", so they put a small forward on him, and then he abuses them at 6'9".
No, but here's a little fun fact for you. When you play basketball, they love to give the stats so the other team can get a little more, scared of, especially the center. So I played center. And they always add your shoe size, so your shoe height. That's your official height. So anytime you see people listed, this is any league. This is college, NBA.
Wow.
They're adding the shoe height for your height. So I was listed at 6'8" throughout my playing days. But I go with 6'7". That's more accurate. Yeah.
That's crazy. I've never thought you were tall. It's because people, you can't tell when you're sitting down. It's like very deceptive.
Damn. The first time I met him, it was at like this rock and roll place in Orange County, right? It was the first time we hung out and had a couple beers and some chicken wings. We were breaking our intermittent fast for the day. I was like, walked in, I was like, holy shit, you're a fucking giant. But he's a gentle giant, so you know what I'm saying? That's the cool thing. But yeah, when I met him in person, I was like, I didn't know you were this goddamn tall. Holy shnikes. So yeah, wow. It caught me off guard too as well. But listen, let's get into it. We got a long show today. We only got three sections. The last one's a small one. We have a little breaking news in the beginning to kind of set the tone, but a lot has been going on. We weren't able to do our show on Friday. That was my fault, guys. I was feeling under the weather. But there's a lot to discuss here and a lot going on. And, man, I don't know which way is up and where it's going to go, but let's break it down, fam. Why don't you jump into, we'll make Fiorella nice and big and let her get into the breaking news so we know.
Yeah. So, Jayme, if you can put that up, it's on the presenting and on the document, however you want to do that.
Look at that.
Okay, so let's just start off by reminding everybody that there were just talks in Istanbul between Russia and Ukraine. And Zelensky got on the phone and chatted with Trump. Trump called him. It lasted about 2 minutes. Trump then went on and had a conversation with Vladimir Putin, who is in Sochi. Vladimir Putin is in Sochi attending a conference of sorts. And he answered the phone and spoke to Donald Trump for about 2 hours. And according to Putin, they are on the right track. Putin came out and had a conversation with Russian journalists and media and basically reiterated what had occurred and what they talked about during this entire thing. And he said the conversation was very meaningful and very useful. He also said that he was expressing gratitude to Trump and the United States for the participation of the direct talks between Russia and Ukraine, for being these mediators, even though they started the whole thing. But this is something that Russia has said for a long time. They have always said, oh, we're thankful for the Trump administration bringing up a resolution or attempting to resolve the issue. Well, let's recall to everybody that the Trump administration is pretty much set. This is the reason they're in this position. That's their role, is to actually try to bring an end to this. And Vladimir Putin said that Russia is in favor of stopping the fighting, but he said it's necessary to develop the most effective ways to move towards peace. He said that the ceasefire situation in Ukraine was for a certain period of time is possible if the agreements are reached. We know that Russia is looking for a permanent solution rather than a 30-day temporary ceasefire. And he also said they're ready to work on a memorandum with Ukraine, including this type of ceasefire. And Trump also reiterated or presented his position as to how they wish the fighting in Ukraine to end. And the conversations was that there needed to be some sort of compromise between all parties. And he said, Vladimir Putin said that overall they're on the right track. And so the main points from this that were given by RIA Novosti is that Russia needs to is in favor of stopping the war, but they need to make sure that it's an effective path, meaning that they don't want to repeat the same mistakes of the past that we all know meant the ignoring of the Minsk 1 and 2 and completely just throwing away the fact that Ukraine was never going to be a part of NATO. That's one of those things. Also, of course, we know the 4 territories need to be recognized as being part of Russia, what Russia has already gained. Russia is ready to work on this memorandum. Russia and Ukraine need to find a compromise. And Putin said this was meaningful. So more of that. And there is a full transcript of Putin's conversation via with Trump via video, as at least as far as they are willing to tell the media, because we always have to look at what's going on in the back channel area. And yeah, so that's the latest that's happened from Moscow right now so far. And that's what is being told to the media thus far. And remember when I said, fam, that Russia is really willing and eager to finish? And Mark said, you know, Russia doesn't need to. A lot of people feel different. Well, there's like different layers here. We have the Russian government, the diplomatic side, which earlier today, Peskov said that, yes, Russia can win on the battlefield, but diplomatic actions are necessary. This is how Russia operates. They're not looking to continue the war, in spite of people saying that there are elements like in the military that would love to just go forward and take as much of Ukraine as possible. But that's not necessarily the same position that the more diplomatic functions of the Russian government have, including obviously the Kremlin, who are clearly seeking a serious resolution. Before this meeting, Ukraine's side, the several Ukrainian leaders came out and said that Russia's talks in Istanbul were a sham, that they weren't presenting anything legitimate because they wanted the 4 territories and they don't want to give it.
We're going to go over all that. I got all that in doc. We're going to go over we're going to go over what happened before this. We're going to lay it all out.
Just okay. So that's just the update as to where that conversation went.
Yeah. And let me just say, fam, that I believe, and we could take this down now, that this was the most positive thing that has happened throughout this whole week. We're going to lay out what's going on. However, I still read a little bit more into this. Putin saying that this was a productive conversation is, like I said, the best thing that's happened so far, right? When he says that. But Putin is not dumb. And remember when Mark Sloboda came on the show, is they're going to be jockeying to blame each other out there? Russia's also putting themselves on the international stage to look like, hey, we did everything we could do. We talked about everything. We had no choice. They didn't want to come to the table. When you talk about the memorandum they're getting for the ceasefire, and you talked about Minsk 1 and 2, Angela Merkel admitted that Minsk 1 and Minsk 2 were nothing more for stall tactics for the Ukrainian military to rearm itself and reload. So Russia's not going to stop for 30 days, especially when they haven't even stopped the weapon shipment. So let's go over what happened that's led up to what happened today from the week, because it's been a very, very busy week, and we should go into it. Now, I want to start off with the Truth Social post that happened. I think it happened the day after Mark was on the show. We never got to it. But put up that Truth Social post right here. Make it nice and big. Can you make it a little bit bigger, honey? There you go. And scroll up just a little bit. Talks with Russia, Ukraine continue. The U.S. calls for ideally a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. See, that right off the bat is like, that's not going to happen. The Russians aren't going to give. The Russians aren't. No, go there. The Russians aren't going to give you that. They're only going to do things on their terms because they are winning on the battlefield, and they're not going to allow Ukraine to rearm, regroup at all. That's why they're not taking their foot off the gas. They haven't taken their foot off the gas. Hopefully, an acceptable ceasefire will be observed, and both countries will be held accountable for respecting the sanctity of these direct negotiations. If the ceasefire is not respected, the U.S. and its partners will impose further sanctions. What the hell is any different right there, fam, than anything he said in the past? There's nothing. If you don't abide by the, go down a little bit more. I'm so sorry, because I wanted that one sentence in there, Jayme. No, the other way.
That's up.
Yeah. Right there. All right. If both countries will be held accountable for respecting the sanctity of these negotiations, if the ceasefire is not respected, the U.S. and its partners will impose further sanctions. What is that? I mean, that's the same tactic right over there. There's nothing different. How do you expect that you're going to end this war in 24 hours when you're using this type of language, Matt?
Yeah, no, this is counter to what we thought, and a lot of people who voted for Trump, and we're going to get into that later. I think as far as like the hopefulness of what Trump did coming in, saying I'm going to end this in 24 hours. This is the longest 24 hours I've ever experienced. I don't know about you guys, but this is one of those moments where, like Craig, I think you're hitting on the head. This talking about imposing further sanctions. This is the language that this goes counter to the idea that you're literally threatening these penalties if you don't stick to this unconditional ceasefire. I mean, I would hope that if Putin is saying it, that this phone call went well, there was some sort of backstep from Trump from this unconditional ceasefire. I'm curious to see the transcript of this entire 2 hours, but that's something that is concerning, that it started with this Truth Social tweet, which doesn't, again, like I think you hit it on the head, Craig. This is not something that we should be 100% optimistic about, that this is the point he started from. And again, the 24 hours to end this thing is clearly not even close to being on track. So something is either going wrong with what Trump thought he could do, or it's just this positioning for his base right now that's keeps them excited and keeps them very hopeful when they see this type of language coming from him. And then of course Putin saying that it went well also is, I guess, like you said, Craig, this is the best thing we've seen throughout this entire couple months. This is the
phone call today. You're talking about the phone call today, right? Yeah. That's the best.
But let's not forget this part. Right now, I would think right now, Trump is on a phone call with Zelensky. That was the follow. That's the more important call. I want to see how that phone call transpires. Because
that phone call doesn't need to have Zelensky agree to anything. It's all about the West just going, you know what? We're stopping the weapons supply. We're not sending you weapons anymore. You had your chance. We're going to end this. And you know what I'm saying? And that's going to get you, that would work you towards the ceasefire. But Donald Trump has two different people in his camp. Now, let me just say this much. We have to once again look at the actions that people take in office, our presidents, our congressmen, not the words they say. They lie on a regular basis. Can we put the rest of that Truth Social post up real quick? Because I just want to read it real quick, just so we have because it's the language. Thousands of young soldiers are dying on a weekly basis, and everybody should want it to stop. I do, and the United States of America does also. So then cut off the weapon supply. As a president, I will stay committed to securing peace between Russia and Ukraine. Together with the Europeans, a lasting peace it will be. This ceasefire must ultimately build towards a peace agreement. It can get done very quickly, and I will be available on a moment's notice if my services are needed. Thank you again. Thank you for your attention to this matter. But he's being completely ignoring, fam, about the fact, and you said this in the opening when we were talking about the breaking news, right? That he's acting like a third-party broker here instead of taking responsibilities. Do the Russians know, fam, that America is responsible for it? Or do they think that that they're just a third party that had nothing to do with it? Your thoughts?
Oh, of course they know that the US is responsible for it. But again, as I've been saying this whole time, there is a belief in some layers of the government here that the Trump administration is easier to deal with than the Biden administration was. And they believe, and they're not the only ones, this has happened with different states all over the world, depending on who's president, they will try certain things to see if they can get to somewhere in terms of negotiations. And with Russia, there is more of a connection with the Trump administration because the Trump administration is leading with this idea of traditional values, of conservatism, of being less interventionist when it comes to them, when it comes to Eurasia, than the Biden administration was. And we all know that this also started obviously during a Democrat administration. So at the same time, there is a sentiment that perhaps that's why they keep saying we're very thankful for the Trump administration to come and actually try this out, because they didn't get that from the Biden administration. Now, we as Americans know that that's on purpose, but it's not necessarily how it's perceived here, is what I'm saying. And I don't, they're not dumb. I mean, you're right. Like, Putin isn't dumb. However, there is a belief like that there could be some sort of negotiation in the future. I don't think we're going to get this right away, like people, like Trump said. I think if we get anything, as we talked about with Mark, it will eventually come back. And I think that's the key here. Even if we get some sort of resolution, I don't see it being permanent until this whole thing is dealt with, because again, the whole aim is to always balkanize Russia. I mean, that's not changed.
The thing about it is that I feel like if this was a poker game, the American poker game team, right, of Clark Kellogg, Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, they're like amateurs playing against like hardcore. Let's say chess analogy, like these are Russian chess masters, and Lavrov and Putin. They know exactly what's going on, and none of the moves fool them. And I can't understand Donald Trump at all. I don't believe he has any free will. I just believe he's an actor playing a part. And they try to set the kabuki theater stage, like Donald Trump is trying to confuse the room. Remember with Bolton, he would send Bolton in the Mad Dog, and then he'd come back and negotiate. Like everything to him is like a real estate deal. And if you're really serious about negotiating, then why send this asshole over here? Put this up, Jayme, the next one. I mean, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Sibia meets Rubio and Graham in Antalya ahead of the Kiev-Moscow talks, and you can scroll up and you can see the picture. They sent Lindsey Graham. There it is. We can get on that picture. They sent Lindsey Graham, the guy who said best money ever spent was killing Russians, fam. If you are serious about negotiations, and and why do people make excuses? All right, I say that Donald Trump has no free will, that he's playing a part, that the masters above him are telling him what to do, and he's following it out, and they're obviously lying and fooling the people with the kabuki theater, right? But why do his supporters support this shit when he listens to people like General Clark Kellogg, who will say that only 100,000 Ukrainians have died and 500,000 Russians will die, which is a complete lie, still push this whole, let's win the war, let's continue the fund. And then this guy, why? What sense does it make, right, to send Lindsey Graham? Does anybody want to make sense of this? Please take a shot at this.
I would say that your game analogy, poker or chess, is right on this, because this is one big game. And I would say Lindsey Graham is the type of, I would say, poker player that will bluff every time and go all in, like down to the last Ukrainian. That's the guy you put at your table when you're like, I want to bluff the hell out of this other side. So you're going to put your guy in that's going to throw all his chips in every time. So I think what we're talking about here, guys, I think we're talking about optics. And I think Fiorella kind of is bringing up a very valid point about how Trump is perceived versus what's actually going on in policy. So we can talk about how it's interchangeable as far as Biden, Harris, Trump, and every one of our policies from any administration we've ever lived through on paper. But when you talk about optics, that might be the difference. The difference is, what is something perceived to be? So when Putin's on a phone call with Trump, there's a perception that he can be more positioned in a better way to say this phone call went well, where he's not going to say that on a call with Harris for 2 hours. Harris couldn't even do a phone call for 2 hours. So we know that. But the point is that the things that Russians know, they don't have to really say out loud, because a lot of that stuff they know happened in the Biden administration. We don't have to talk about the Nord Stream pipeline. We don't have to talk about breaking all these deals and lying over and over and over.
But Matt, I don't mean to interrupt you. The Russians know. I don't mean to interrupt you, but the Russians know that it's one fucking apparatus that's continuing to do this stuff. It's a different face in Trump than Biden, and you can listen. It's a continuation. Trump even said, "I gave you javelins. Obama gave you sheets. I gave you javelins." It's just a continuation. Putin and Lavrov know they're not dealing with Donald Trump or Joe Biden. They know they're dealing with the military-industrial complex and the oligarchs that run this country.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I don't think they're of that belief. I honestly, maybe I would have thought that before, but from being here, I don't think that they think that. I think that there's still some belief in, yes, like they know that U.S. foreign policy and the national security state exists, but I still think they think that there's a huge influence depending on who's president. And that's how the majority of people in the world perceive that they can still, at least dignitaries, we're talking about high level officials, presidents and all of that. They do see a difference between the administrations. They do not believe necessarily what we believe in terms of that. And that's why they seek diplomatic attempts.
If you
and
watch,
that includes China as well.
If you watch Putin, and Putin has said before, talking about how oligarchs have ruined the American country. If you see him in that interview with Oliver Stone,
of course, yeah,
it's a little bit different. I believe that they have to play the game on a national stage because they have to follow internet. They have to go along and with the marketing and show that they've done everything they could to look for peace, so the international world would see him as that. But I do believe, and maybe I'm wrong, and you're there and you get a little bit more sense of what's going on. I don't know. I think I feel that they know that they're dealing with forces that are above Donald Trump, that maybe not control him completely, but definitely, at the very least, highly influence him. And the next part over here, fam, you send Lindsey Graham, you send Clark Kellogg, and Clark Kellogg he's literally talking on TV
Kellogg,
shows.
right?
Huh? Kellogg.
Keith? Yeah.
Is it Keith? It's not Clark Kellogg? I'm sorry. It's Keith Kellogg. Admiral, well, he's not an admiral. He's a general. He's a douchebag, right? I mean,
yeah.
I know what he looks like. Yeah. They go to Turkey. You have Kellogg on TV talking about Ukraine still trying to get NATO status. You got Lindsey Graham there. Ukraine-Russia peace talks end less than 2 hours with only a deal swap of prisoners of wars, but no ceasefire. Let's scroll up because I just want to read a little bit about it over here. Go up a little bit more to get that right there. The first direct Russia-Ukraine peace talks since the early weeks of Moscow's 2022 invasion ended less than 2 hours Friday, fam. So they all go out to friggin' Turkey. 2 hours were out. Prisoner exchange, that's it. And while both sides agreed on a large prisoner swap, they clearly remained far apart on key conditions for ending the fighting. One such condition for Ukraine, backed by its Western allies, is a temporary ceasefire as a first step forward towards a peace settlement. The Kremlin has pushed back against such truce, which remains elusive. We haven't received a Russian yes on the basic point, Ukraine Foreign Ministry spokesperson, I'm not going to say that name, Hirori Taikel, said after the talks. If you want to have serious negotiations, you have to have guns silenced. So they're still pushing this unconditional ceasefire, fam, but they have a history, right? And now scroll up a little bit more, or scroll down, excuse me. Oh, you went too far. But Russian delegation head Vladimir Medinsky pronounced himself satisfied with the outcome, adding that Moscow was ready for continued contacts. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he discussed the talks with Donald Trump and the leaders of France, Germany, UK, Poland, and in a post from X, a European leadership meeting in Albania, he urged, here it is again, tough sanctions against Moscow if he rejects a full and unconditional ceasefire to end the killings. You know, they both said what they're talking about is unreasonable. What Russia's like laughing that they want this territory back, like they're still bringing up Crimea, like it was a nothing burger here. And once again, the Europeans telling Donald Trump that you have to sanction Vladimir Putin again. So it's like to me, this week and this weekend was all about them going backwards. I mean, you think that Russia's going to have an unconditional ceasefire, and we've talked about what they've done with Minsk 1 and Minsk 2. They're not going to do it. So why even propose this, and why is Donald Trump proposing more of the same?
This is why the phone call with Zelensky is very important, and I wouldn't dismiss this as this is actually more important than the Putin call. I would say if you could cut off the weapons that were being sent, that we've been talking about being sent all this time, and Trump could say that's done with, then we actually have something. Then we have
put up the post, put up the next post, so to back what Matt's saying up here like that. If you could do that, but guess what, Matt? Just a couple weeks ago, they were sending Patriot missiles and HIMARS. Jayme, you got it? All right, I'm going to put some stuff up, Jayme. I'll drive the bus a little bit.
This the weapons. That's the deal. That's the difference. That's when we were talking about breaking the Minsk 1 and 2 was because of that buying the time, like Angela Merkel said, to get more weapons and to build up build up the arms for Ukraine. If you can cut that off this time, then the lying about it or not lying about it isn't as relevant if you're not actually building weapons up for Ukraine, for Zelensky. So if he cuts that off today, that makes this something. And so we don't know the answer to that just yet.
Where's mine? Take yours off. Okay, so more U.S. Patriot missile interceptors from Israel, Europe bound for Ukraine, right? So that was earlier in the month, right? There it goes. One of the things we want to talk about, and it's one of the things, fam, I noticed the Russians have mentioned. I don't know if it was Lavrov or one of the other negotiators who's saying, you want to ceasefire, but you don't want to stop sending weapons? Like saying, that is ridiculous that you don't want to stop doing that. And that was just, okay, so they're being sent from Israel. Then we have from the Kiev Independent right here, U.S. approves transfer for 125-meter long-range missiles, 100 Patriots from Germany to Ukraine. And this was May 11th now. There they are. They're still sending them over. They haven't stopped.
That's approved to send over. And they're not there, so we can cut this off. That was a week ago. This can be cut off now. They don't have them yet.
The first one they did from Israel. They got those.
Yeah, from Israel. Yes.
You know, they haven't stopped sending weapons yet. That's what I'm trying to say. You know.
Yeah, but there's a war going on. They're not going to stop sending weapons. Russia's not going to stop its incursions. It's further into Donetsk, recapturing everything that it wants to recapture. So there's always been negotiations as long as wars have been going on. They're not gonna stop because Ukraine's not stopping.
But if you want a ceasefire, fam, you got to bring something to the table. If Ukraine was serious about a ceasefire, they'd say, okay, we want a ceasefire. You know,
Ukraine isn't, we know Ukraine's not in charge, right? Yeah. We know Zelensky's not in charge. So who's really in charge here?
Well, I'm saying Putin, Trump, right? If Trump's in charge, that one phone call, and once again, he was to speak today. We know this, stopping the bloodbath. But right away, the agreement should be, okay, we'll stop the weapons. We'll give us a ceasefire. We'll stop the weapons. We won't send them right away. And this is what happens today. This is where we're at. This was the breaking news you updated on, stuff like that. All I'm saying is that the behavior is so consistent of the United States. It's the same old shit. They say one thing and they completely do another, right? And we're still the nation of war. That's all we do is war. We don't want to change our behavior whatsoever. It's the same behavior, and you're going to say this is the peace president over here?
I'm
I don't
telling
know.
you that I
I
agree
hope
with
we
you.
get something, fam. I really do. But it's like this is consistent in the Trump administration, the Bush administration. The only thing is different is that Trump says shit out loud that the other ones wouldn't say. But
But that's not the perception.
Yeah.
It's not the perception in some people in government in Russia. I'm just telling you, their perception is that they can get something here with this administration. Whether we like it or not, that's just how it's conducted. And I think a lot of like we don't see why we don't get it, but that's the perception. And I'm telling you based on the media as well, how the media conducts itself towards the Trump administration, how how the perception of certain politicians. It may not be the perception on the ground, the military aspect. Again, that's a very different perception. We saw the difference between, for example, Putin and then the Wagner troops, right? With Yevgeny Prigozhin. We've seen the difference in strategies and tactics. There's different opinions. But I'm saying, as far as the Kremlin and how they conduct their affairs, they're extremely diplomatic to the point of frustration for some people in Russia, saying,
because
why
it's
don't
hard
you
to
just
say
go
that they
this?
never follow international law, fam. That's why. At the end of the day, they have to play the game because even if, let's say, for instance, that Putin, Lavrov, Medvedev, all these guys know, all right, let's just say for argument's sake, Jayme, let's just say for argument's sake that they know that the Americans are full of shit, right? Like, remember when Putin said he'd rather have Biden in than Trump in? Let's just say that for argument's sake, he thinks that Trump is full of shit. You never know what's going on. The guy's a wild horse. He really can't make decisions. Russia's actions with their government would still be the same because on the global stage, they're going to look like the ones that are following international law because they're always citing it. They're always pointing it. So they're always going to be diplomatic no matter what they believe. And that's how Russia has always been. You know what I'm saying? That's why I think this thing is such a quagmire because even though what we're hearing today, and it was very, once again, positive. Listen, I don't want to sit here and say, I told you so, that Donald Trump was full of shit. Mark Sloboda was right. This war is never going to end. They might just pause, but they'll go back to it, whatever. I hope I am wrong. There are people getting slaughtered on the battlefield every single fucking day. But from what I saw from the Truth Social post to up what happened into Turkey, it's the same old shit in America, just like they are in the Middle East. Not going to change. That's just my opinion.
Ukraine can't keep going without U.S. weapons. So
what's that?
Ukraine cannot keep this up without U.S. weapons and just with European help. Not really. So if the U.S. were to stop and say, okay, we're serious about it, we're going to stop, then as Matt said, then if that does happen, then I think then you could say, okay, well, there's an attempt to end this. But overall, I agree with you. Like, I don't think there's going to be a legitimate attempt to permanently end it. They might present a permanent solution for the Russians, but I think what we're going to see is the continued buildup against Russia in the future. That doesn't mean that I don't think that there's a desire for the Russia to end it. I think the United States doesn't want to end it. I think the Trump administration needs to position itself as winning a victory, turning this failure into a victory. They need to position themselves as getting out of this mess because it's been a loss. It's been a massive loss for the United States, but more of a loss for Europe. Why do you think they're so upset and pissed off and pro-Ukrainian? Because they're the ones that got screwed and they're the ones that are looking like they lost a whole lot.
Matt, you know who I know it wasn't a loss for, Matt? The weapons manufacturers. It was a win for them. Go ahead, buddy.
No, definitely. And look, Craig, as far as circling back to your original point that Trump is not actually in charge and he was handpicked to do the same thing. We've seen, time after time, administration after administration, but the optics are important and the perception is important. And I do believe that what we've been saying from the beginning, we said way back in 2022, we said, there's no way NATO and the West can come out of this as victors. There's no way. So perception is all you have. So you bring Trump in to figure out a way to position the optics to make it look like that we got something. The art of the deal has been completed, and the way you spin it is we got something out of this nothing, which eventually this is going to end. There's no way around it. This is not sustainable. We've said that from the beginning. Either this ends in World War III, nuclear annihilation, or Ukraine folds, or there's no other way around it. You don't have a victory for NATO. So this is how you do it. You bring Trump in. You
seems
position
like
the
Trump
optics and the perception that this is going to be kind of a win. If you spin it just the right way, it might look like a win on
But
paper.
how can he spin it
it's
the right
not.
way? You said 24 hours. It's 5 months now. It's like, you know what I'm saying? And
He said he was joking, Pasta.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
Trump. He says a lot of shit.
But that's part of his art of the deal. It's to present tough. It's the monster truck approach. And it's like, no, I was just kidding. But it's about that tough language and saying the thing out loud you're not supposed to say, and just presenting to your base that you're a tough guy. And like Fiorella says, people in Russia are actually saying, oh, this guy perceives to us differently than Biden Harris. This guy actually presents as somebody we can talk with. And then that's why Putin today is literally saying the call went well. And there's a reason he's doing that, because of the positioning of what we've been doing here. And I think we're all kind of saying the same thing, that Trump is his purpose is to sit in this position and figure out a way that we can move on from this, so the West and NATO doesn't look like they're the worst players of chess of all time, because that's what they really are. But it's what is perceived to be.
No
that's
saving that. That's too late. That ship has sailed, Matt. Final question, Fee, before we get to the next section. Do you think there's going to be a ceasefire or an end to the war, and when do you think it's going to happen? I'd like to hear your opinion too, Matt. Mark Sloboda said it's going to be an endless situation, but I want to know your guys' final thoughts as we close up this section. Right now, Putin and Zelensky might be on a phone call after Putin Trump and Zelensky might be on the phone call, right? I'm going to tell you something. You don't have the cards. You ain't going to have to do this, and we're going to have to cut off your weapons. But, I don't think Zelensky is allowed to surrender, because he'll be freaking hung by the Azov battalion inside the Maidan right away. So he might as well take a trip to Miami in his house and then announce the ceasefire from Biscayne Boulevard. But your final thoughts, Fee, is it going to end? What are we going to get? When's it going to happen? And Matt, I'd love to hear your opinion on that too.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's the other thing. Zelensky looks like a rabid dog all the time, but he has no bite. He's constantly talking about being upset and that it's a sham and that Putin's not serious. But what else is he going to do? Is he just going to be like, oh, we're right. Like, yeah, let's just give them everything. That's not gonna work. People would literally like go after him and hang him somewhere. Like, that's not how he should be for a lot of people in Ukraine who really have this anti-Russian perspective for all of Europe. So he can't do that. He can't even if he wanted to, he can't. And we know he's just a puppet, so he will be disposed as soon as they're done with him. And in my opinion, I think we're nearing that point where we're almost done with Zelensky. I think there's going to be a halt in this special military operation, which is basically Russia's war against NATO and the US, right? It's never been called that, but I think we're nearing some sort of a permanent solution, quote unquote permanent solution. I think we're going to see that eventually happen. I don't think it's actually going to be permanent. What I mean by that is it might look like that. It might look like we're done, but I think in a few administrations or however long it takes, we're going to see the US return towards targeting Russia. But I do think right now, based on the back channel communications between Trump and the Kremlin, and also other things happening on the sidelines, the way there was an American delegation here for May 9th, the way they're pushing this unity between the US in economic terms. They're pushing this unity, the way Russia has also manipulated the situation with Syria. There are certain things going on that indicate to me that there isn't a desire to normalize relations with the United States. And I don't think Russia needs to do that in terms of the battlefield. I don't think it's everybody's desire, especially people, like I said, on the ground, really fighting these battles, who are very patriotic. But I do think the government thinks differently. And it's not just for show all the time. This is actually how they operate. This is how they've always operated. And I think a lot of people just kind of put their ideological desires on Russia to be like, no, they're going to fight forever and they're just, they're going to seek justice against the West and they hate the West. That's just not the truth. That's not
Yeah.
how the
Yeah.
government operates. That's not the sentiment coming out of the Kremlin. And we'll see what happens, I guess.
I think that's the most disappointing thing to see is that Russia's not like that. Like, a lot of us back in the days, I think we thought that they're going to form a multipolar world and they're going to fight the West and say no more. And the West is going to have to come to peace agreements. But it seems like that's not the way it's going to happen. Matt, let me say this much. In about 2 months, there's supposed to be an influx of Russian troops coming up. A big influx coming up. And I'm going to bet, I'm kind of switching my bet. I'm going to hedge my bet where I thought it was going to end and I hoped it was going to end. And I'll explain that towards the end of the show as we show a little project that we have working on and we were preparing for. But I'm going to say it's going to be kind of like what Mark Sloboda said. I think at the end of the day, and I believe personally that there's no way the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin could exist until they take the whole country, until they take Kiev. Whichever one you want to say. There are streets named after Banderites in Kiev. They're never going to let that happen. Those Banderites, those people hate Russians more than they hate Jews. Literally. They'd rather deal with a Jewish president than have to deal with Russians in the Donbass living there. And they rather just fucking bomb them. That's how bad they are. So my guess is that this is all going to be talk. Donald Trump's not going to stop the weapons from going on over the weapon shipments. Eventually, Russia will take Kiev, and the United States will go. See, we tried to find a resolution in good faith, and they didn't want to have it, and they went and invaded and took Kiev. That is my bet. But if you got a different bet, put it out there so we can wrap up this section.
Okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb and do a crazy prediction right now. Probably wrong, but if it's right, clip this because this might make actual sense to come out of this and move on from this. So the 30-day ceasefire will happen. Trump and Zelensky's phone call is going to be a matter of Trump telling Zelensky this is happening. And then Trump may be setting up Zelensky to, during the next month, break the ceasefire and then for having an excuse to throw him under the bus and switch him out. Once you switch out Zelensky, now you can move Russia in a position to take Kyiv and to then ultimately end this with whoever they replace him with. But we talked about Zelensky's reign will come to an end. We know that will happen. We don't know how. But if this 30-day ceasefire happens, that could be a way, an excuse to do a little switch out and find a way to end this thing. That's my bold prediction. Clip this if I'm right. If I'm not, oh well, but I thought I'd give it a shot.
I hope B is right.
Sam,
I really do.
I
hope B is right.
I have an update. Jayme, can you propose the latest screenshot that I posted there, the third one? Can you put it up? Yeah. So this is just now from RIA Novosti. Trump said that after a conversation with Putin, that Russia and Ukraine would immediately begin negotiations on a ceasefire and a ceasefire. According to the U.S. president, the terms of the ceasefire in Ukraine can only be discussed by the two parties to the conflict. So that means that there is going to be a quote unquote discussion between Zelensky and Putin. However, we know who's driving the bus is the U.S. And as Matt said, if the U.S. forcibly tells Zelensky to do something, who put him there? Who's running the show? If Ukraine doesn't do it, they're going to face a certain amount of consequences. And I believe then that's when we would see a more quick attempt of a removal of Zelensky. The second part, Trump said the tone of the conversation with Putin was excellent. Russia is interested, according to the American leader, in large-scale trade with the United States after the end of the conflict. And this is a second thing I forgot to bring up about why I think there is an interest from Russia to work with the U.S. It's a business interest. It's an expanding its economy interest. This is never talked about because people look at things from the military perspective. Oh, Russia doesn't need to do this. Of course they don't militarily, but economically, Russia is seeking to literally expand its economic power abroad. They've been doing this, for example, moving their bases to Libya and having economic sectors there. They've kept their bases in Syria, and they are also seeking to expand via BRICS. But that never meant that there would be this very venomous, very just negative and villainous relationship with the United States. They've never sought that. It has been the West that has always sought that relationship. And I think what a lot of people miss in their analysis is the economic side of Russia that is not just diplomatic geopolitically, but economically as well. They want to expand their interests in development. Yes, they don't need to. Yes, they've decided to look at other pastures with China, with Pakistan, with India. However, why are they going to cut themselves off? They're like open to everything else. And I think that's never really discussed either. So
They
that's
don't
just
need
the
to,
latest.
but they want to, right? So it's, they want to play on a global stage. You want to play with the global big boys.
Yeah.
So I guess it's that. All right. So that's the way it is. Listen, fam, I hope that you're right. I hope that the stalling of this and it ends eventually very soon. I hope that was just maybe the United States trying to stall it out and take care of their money laundering scheme, their, their pyramid scheme, their embezzlement, because that's going to pick it up and move it somewhere else. The military industrial complex is going to get millions and millions and billions and billions and trillions of dollars. And, American business is the same. It's war. Let's get to the next section over here, because this is something we didn't really get to talk about too in depthly. We talked about it on Matt's show a little bit, but there's been more information that's been coming out. There's been more events that have taken place since the Donald Trump versus Netanyahu. We heard people back in the past said Donald Trump was putting Netanyahu on a leash. But man, the talk is that Donald Trump is mad at Netanyahu. I mean, if the treatment that Donald Trump gives Netanyahu is the treatment he gives to somebody when he's mad, I hope he's mad at me, right? I hope he gets mad at me, because then I get everything I want. Let's take a look, first of all, because here's the thing, too. We're going to talk about exactly what Donald Trump has given Israel, right? And, as you do what you do for Netanyahu, you do for Israel. That's what they want. All the people who run the government in Israel, if Netanyahu was gone, they still want to expand the Greater Israel Project. That's what this is all about. But the side note is that some people in the United States, some people I consider smart people. Now, the grifters, fam, and Matt, we knew what they were going to go do. They're going to go praise Trump no matter what. That was the same kind of mentality with putting Netanyahu on the leash after the ceasefire that never really was a ceasefire. And people were even saying that he should get a Nobel Peace Prize. And that's crazy, because how many people have died since that ceasefire?
Do you remember that?
Yeah. I do remember.
Did those people ever say, "Oh, sorry, we were wrong"?
No, those people never said that.
No.
But I mean,
Okay.
and we expected them, those same people, to come out. People are saying, "Oh my God, Donald Trump is embracing nationalism and he's going away from globalism and he's no longer going to serve Israel's needs." And like I said, I expected those people, who the Fugazis, the ones who are being promoted in the Elon Musk, Donald Trump X right now, who they are.
Yep.
But it's some very smart people out there. The most surprising was Jeffrey Sachs. You know what I'm saying? In his position. Whitney Webb said this before on our show. She said this when she did when she did AM Wake Up. Nothing will change in politics in America until the people start looking at the policies and the actions taken by the governments, not the rhetoric and the words. If you look at the rhetorics and he said this or this tweet or what's going on, you're going to get lost, because he can say one thing and do another. And we are talking about a guy in Donald Trump who's in the WWE Hall of Fame. So let's start the first clip, fam, and let's break it down and show how we're disappointed. And then we'll prove to you guys how Trump really not that mad at Netanyahu. Maybe he is, but what difference does he make if he gives him everything he wants? Go ahead.
Okay, Jayme, so I guess you can play it from 35 seconds. We're going to listen to this clip. It's George Galloway. And we're going to listen to what's said, and we're going to pretty much, we're all going to pretty much, I guess, oppose this viewpoint, because everything Donald Trump has done in terms of Netanyahu, it's just very obvious. There's no way that the most Zionist administration, we're talking, the Adelson administration, the most Zionist cabinet we've had like ever, is suddenly going to break up with Israel just because. And you saw it in all the media. All the media said this they're still talking about it. It's been how long? Like 10 days? Oh, yeah. Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu are breaking up. Israel and the United States are breaking up. Things are changing within the U.S. I personally think this is happening because they want to show that there is some sort of renewed interest within the US to like hold Israel accountable, because they've seen that their base is largely going against that and it's going in the other direction, and is realizing, oh, but we supported you because we thought you weren't going to be, akin to the deep state or in favor of the globalists and blah blah blah. But the reality is Trump is part of it, as Pasta has been saying. He's been a part of it this whole time. And I think there's a PR effort to distract from what is actually happening right now, because I don't know if you put it in there, maybe I'll have to put it in there, but more than 500 people have died in the last few days in Gaza, being attacked in some of the most horrible ways we have seen this entire genocide.
Yeah.
Simultaneously,
Matt put out, fam, the video of the aides. They put the aid trucks out there and they just started mowing them down, snipering up. That's happened since Trump has been fighting with Netanyahu too. I mean, it's disgusting. You're absolutely right.
So while that's happening, all of these people are saying how, Trump is having a good week, how great it is, and blah, blah, blah. So that's why we're going to do this, because there's this gigantic, and you're right, a lot of other smart people are repeating it. There's this gigantic push to make Trump like the guy that's going to settle everything, right? He's going to settle the war in Ukraine. He's going to settle this in Gaza. He's not going to talk to Bibi unless he makes a Palestinian state. But what it would be a Palestinian sliver? How would that even exist as long as Israel exists? It wouldn't. So anything, even if you got that, it's just not reality. So let's just go ahead and hear it. And then
let me also say this too, fam. Not only did he have to fool the American people, he was going to the Gulf states, the monarchs. He had to fool them too, because he had to look like he was strong against Israel to fool them too. So yeah, let's take a look at this here. And it's disappointing the way some people miss this really bad.
Well, it's expected of some and disappointing of others.
Yes, exactly.
Soprano, otherwise known as Donald Trump, he's on a bit of a roll at the moment. When you think of what's happened with the Yemen, with Iran, and with now the Palestinian resistance in Gaza, it's been a good week for him, don't you think?
I think so. I think you, myself, Haz al-Din, a few others, the only people who are at this point looking like we might be vindicated for saying, don't write Trump off completely. His supporters have a very good, they have a very good opinion on geopolitical issues. And if he listens to his supporters, then it could be a very interesting presidency. And it's important to remind everyone,
I just got to say it right there. That's the thing that you should recognize right away. If anybody is playing the lesser of two evils game and telling you to pick either team, they're simply a grifter or a paid propagandist. That's it. That's it. And he's playing the lesser of two evils argument here. We're vindicated. You're vindicated? And you've been talking this shit for so fucking long, while some of us were saying, whoa, 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 whoa. The most Zionist freaking administration of all times is nothing you should stand behind. And I held everybody accountable for that, even the libertarians. But what he's doing right here with his little fucking smirk is playing this lesser of two evils game bullshit. And I'm so surprised that George Galloway played into this shit. You can continue unless you have something to say, fam.
a few months in.
No, I'll do it at the end. Go ahead.
3 months in, yeah.
I mean, if Kamala Harris was president and Ansar Allah in Yemen bombs the Ben Gurion airports in the Zionist entity, do you think that 3 days later, 4 days later, she'd be signing a peace deal with those same Houthis
stop
in Yemen?
right
No,
here.
she
Sorry,
never would.
I have to say something about this.
Thank you, fam.
Okay. So Yemen, Ansar Allah, the reason Trump did this is because the American ships were getting absolutely destroyed, and he was about to go into Oman to have conversations with all these Arab leaders, and he didn't want to be there while Ansar Allah was bombing the exact area where he was going to be. There is no desire for Trump to end the war in Yemen that's been going on since he was president. When Trump was president, there was a war going on. What do you mean with Kamala Harris this way? It was the same war. It's never stopped. This is what people don't understand. It didn't really stop. This has been an ongoing thing with Yemen. This is why it's like so insane to me that some of these people are able to get on and talk about things they don't know anything about. And This has nothing to do with Trump wanting to get peace because he's some altruistic figure. This has to do with the fact that Donald Trump saw how literally he's looking like a complete fool by getting his ships destroyed. The U.S. is getting all their ships destroyed. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, we're just gonna dip out of here for a second because we need to make sure we don't look like complete and total fools. And that's why it has nothing to do with altruism or because he's just better than Kamala Harris. Why are we using Kamala Harris to justify what Donald Trump is doing? This is, again, as you said, lesser of evils argument.
The lesser of two evils grift, and we lost 3 fighter jets off aircraft carriers that fell into the fucking ocean, spent over $1 billion. The Yemenis took down almost 30 fucking drones. It was a disaster. We were getting our asses handed to us. And for him to come out like this isn't like this is Donald Trump being the peace candidate when he was bombing for no reason whatsoever at the behest of Israel. You hit it on the nose. You want to continue with the video, or do we have enough there?
Yeah, no, it's still, I think
there's more bullshit. All right,
that's brave and honorable people.
Exactly. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Can you go back a little bit there? We just lost a little. I just want a little bit before who was he talking? Brave and honorable people. Go back just a little bit more. Right there.
I think that 3 days later, 4 days later, she'd be signing a peace deal with those same Houthis in Yemen. No, she never would.
And praising them as brave and honorable people.
Exactly. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. If Kamala Harris was president, she wouldn't be going toe-to-toe with Benjamin Netanyahu and saying, you're not going to drag me into a war with Iran. You're going to have to settle down and not do this second invasion. You're going to have to allow aid into Gaza. You'd just be sitting back and allowing everything to happen. And then also, Trump, it should be noted, played a large role, as I understand, in this Pakistan-India.
He says so anyway, yeah.
I think
he'd say so whether he did or not, but he definitely has claimed that he got the ceasefire.
Maybe
make his week even bigger.
Maybe the Chinese air defenses that were used in Pakistan had a bigger role than Trump, possibly, in securing an end to that conflict. But Russia as well. You look at what he tweeted out a few moments ago. He said, look, Zelensky needs to get his act together. President Putin has made an excellent offer. And if Ukraine doesn't make good on this offer, then I'm going to have some big questions about the leadership.
Big questions. Big questions, fam. Big questions. And, I love the way this kid fucking just gives himself little outs. Oh, I think it could have been the Chinese defense systems. He also, in the next part of that clip, he'll talk about, he's giving it to Zelensky, but he's still sending the weapons there. We saw the HIMARS and Patriots, you know what I'm saying? Just fucking fence sitting all the time with this bullshit over here. This is the grift that's going on. The lesser of two evils grift. Matt, you haven't said anything.
Of that clip. But yeah, Matt, go ahead. I just want to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah. Okay. So this all comes back to feelings. We're talking about feelings. Okay. Now look, we could talk about whether Jackson Hinkle is paid to lie right here. I'm looking at his face. I'm looking at Galloway, and I'm thinking that they really do believe these things, and it's because of feelings and ego. Let's talk about ego. Trump has an ego. Trump has feelings. Everybody has ego and feelings. This is the stuff that is the most useful thing to get people to believe something, is use their feelings against them and their ego against them. So back to why this narrative was successful from the beginning is because Trump's ego came into play. I fully believe his ego was in play. I believe that you have a guy who doesn't have the power he thinks. You have voters who voted for him, including Jackson Hinkle, who they don't have the power they think. They want to believe they do. And he wants to say, if only Trump would listen to his voters, he would do all these things. That he said that in the clip there. And these are hopeful statements, hopeful sentiments. These things aren't actually happening because, as we all know, we talk about this on our shows. We know the truth of the matter is that our president doesn't have, whoever it is, does not have the power that we want to believe they have. They don't have that power. And Trump and Netanyahu Netanyahu is going to do what he's going to do, and he's going to ramp up the murdering and the killing and the genociding, as we've seen. So that's 100% happening. Are the MAGA voters going to acknowledge that? No, they're not, because their feelings get in the way. So whether you could say Jackson Hinkle is paid to lie, or he's paid for whatever reason to believe what he's saying, because I think he actually believes it. I think there's this, again, it's ego, it's hope, I voted for this guy.
There's money in finances. Not that
Well,
even if
there's
you're paid for it, it's the popular narrative to play the team sports mentality that will get you the clicks and go along, rather than do what we're doing over here, saying sorry to bring the sour milk and the cookies over here, guys, the stale cookies. But that's not the truth over there. That's not what's really going on. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
So look, put Hinkle aside. We talked about Jeffrey Sachs, and that's the one I know it probably it hurts more for us to see.
That stung.
Okay. And the reason that stung is because we don't look at Jeffrey Sachs like we did with Jackson Hinkle. We don't look at him as an opportunist. We look at him as a truth teller that is willing to put himself on the line and say what's really happening, that actually understands the military industrial complex, understands NATO, understands how Israel functions and how we function with Israel. So he understands all those things. But to hear Jeffrey Sachs fall for the same thing, it's because of what I'm talking about hope. I'm talking about feelings. And everything Jeffrey Sachs said in the clip we played on our show is very similar to what Jackson Hinkle is doing here. It's riding on this idea that something is going to happen that hasn't happened yet. So we're wasting airtime and people's attention spans, and like you said, and getting clicks for something that hasn't happened. And so they're not able to look beyond that and say, how does this make sense? If the president is controlled by the military industrial complex that selected him, which we all know, how can any of this even be true at all? But again, I think we get caught up on ego and on feelings, and that's where we are, why we are where we are right now. And Craig, you hit it on the head. This is exactly like lesser of two evils, but I don't necessarily think the people doing it right now know that they're doing it. I think because they're caught up with their feelings.
It's the same script. It's the same bullshit. I mean, Donald Trump says stuff that some other presidents wouldn't say. I give you that. That's the argument, but his actions are always full of shit. We're talking about something that hasn't happened. Guys, I made a list of a few things that have happened since Donald Trump and Netanyahu, they hate each other, right? All the talks of this and that and whatnot, and what Jeffrey Sachs said, and all these great weeks. Let's go over the things that have happened since the dispute. First thing, put it on up, Jayme. Antiwar.com reporting. Report: Witkoff told mediators that the U.S. won't force Israel to end the Gaza slaughter. This is May 15. Netanyahu is refusing to end this genocidal war and has vowed it will continue even if more hostages are released. So even if they release the hostages, with the thing they were calling all the time, they're not going to stop. The U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff has told Arab mediators that the U.S. will not force Israel to end its genocidal war in the Gaza Strip, according to the report from the Times of Israel. I don't want to read into this because we got a lot of stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? Benjamin Netanyahu. But man, what are your guys' thoughts? I wish that Donald Trump was mad at me, because if I got that, right, that's exactly what Israel wanted. Because if he was really upset and he was going to handcuff Israel, wouldn't the first thing he do, fam, is either we're going to cut off your funding if you don't have a ceasefire. We want to bring aid in there. We want to stop this right away. Wouldn't that be the first thing? Here is Witkoff telling you they're not stopping, regardless of the WWE match between Netanyahu and Trump that will follow The Undertaker and Hulk Hogan. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think, call me when they literally stop the funding to Israel. When they stop that, sure, maybe I might start saying, oh, look, that maybe the U.S. does want to break up with Israel. I'll be the first one to say it, but that's not happening at all. They're not stopping the funding. They're not going to stop Israel at all. What Israel uses is U.S. complacency, U.S. funding, U.S. weapons. They work in collusion together to do what they're doing in Gaza. And they've been literally killing people the last few days in refugee camps in a way that hasn't happened in pretty much the entire genocide. Yeah. And they're going to force now Egypt and other states to accept Palestinians, or basically force them out. And even if you can come in and say, well, Donald Trump's going to negotiate something and he's going to force the creation of a Palestinian state, what would that even look like? What would a Palestinian state dictated by the United States and Israel look like? It wouldn't be an actual sovereign state. We got it.
In Libya. That's the second thing that's happened. Put that up, Jayme, while Fam is talking about this over here. What would it look like? Yeah, here's Donald Trump agreeing to send 1 million refugees, 1 million Palestinians to Libya. So he's going to recognize a Palestinian state. It's just going to be in Libya. because he's really mad at Netanyahu. Anybody jump in, please. This one makes me laugh. This is May 16th. This is after he was mad at him. Boy, I wish Donald Trump was mad at me.
Yeah. Well, look, this is the thing that Jeffrey Sachs got so excited about, was the fact that it was leaked, or the Jerusalem Post said that Trump is going to acknowledge Palestine as a state. And we're so excited, but it hasn't happened. It won't happen. And then this news breaks on the 16th that says he's going to be moving 1 million Palestinians to Libya. Yeah, you might be right, Craig. That might be where he declares the state, or he probably won't do it at all. Again, it's just words. It's not real. And then you look closer at this and you say, well, why 1 million? What about the other 1.2 million? What's going on there? Oh, that's right. They're starving to death if they haven't already been murdered. So there's this idea that the numbers are this is a big reveal, that the numbers that they're telling us about haven't been true. We know they haven't been true, but now just to put a 1 million stamp on how many are going to be considered refugees and need to be put somewhere else, which is what we call textbook ethnic cleansing, which is what it was the whole time. I wanted to know what happens to the other 1.1 million and change. What happens to them? Oh, that's right. They're starving to death. So Palestinian state or not, this is unacceptable. This is business as usual. This is Israel first. And then Trump getting half his base to be fooled that it's not, is just him helping out his ego so he can still pretend to wear a MAGA hat and put America first, when this is just Israel first, business as usual.
Fam, you said you wanted to play a clip before I got to the next thing that Donald Trump also gave.
It's not a clip. It's just I want to show this quick thing, because while all of these people, and I think Matt's right. I think some people believe this, but I think others believe in the algorithm and what it gets them and the clicks and all of that. And I think that's what we just saw right now in that clip with Hinkle. I think that's what we saw, because it is really popular right now. Not just in the US, but in Russia. It is a popular thing to push Donald Trump. This is what we're talking about here. There is a different perception as to how Trump is. But we who know better, that we know that there's really no difference, right? And the entire time that these people have been pushing that there's a fight between Netanyahu and Trump, this has been happening. There have been more than 130 people killed by Israel in Gaza. And over the past 3 days, that made it 500. And the people being killed right now are being killed in refugee camps. They're being killed in areas where there's literally like nothing left anymore. It's already rubble. So they're being like killed upon rubble. And now you had what did Trump do? He had conversations with the Gulf states, including, of course, with Syria's new regime leader, Giuliani, who literally is a terrorist. And he was gloating about how great of a guy he is. And what's Giuliani going to do? He's going to give in. He's going to give in. He's going to be forced to give in the butchering of Syria to Israel, to Turkey. And this is all part of the thing. This is what we're talking about.
Giuliani was put there.
There's no
Giuliani was put there. This is him going over and saying, I'm going to end the sanctions in Syria, is not like, oh my God, that must piss off Israel. Really? Israel's like 25 kilometers from the capital of fucking Syria. They got more territory. They've dropped more bombs in Syria in the last 3 months, right? I mean, all of a sudden now it's, give me a break. Here's something else that Donald Trump has also done. This is the post that came up that he was going to Jerusalem Post. Trump may recognize the state of Palestine during an upcoming Saudi summit, right? So now he's going to recognize their state. What happens next? The next article. Jayme, you got the next article? Yeah, here we go. Tel Aviv strike. Dramatic moment. Israel launches first airstrikes in major operation Gideon's Chariot to seize and control Gaza. This is May 17th. He's going to recognize the state. And let's not forget, fam, you said this, Matt, you heard this. The United States is paying for all this. This is our Joe tax dollar paying for all of this. Now Operation Gideon's Chariot, which is going to allow Israel to take more territory in Gaza, while he's saying, well, let's shuffle off these million Palestinians over to Libya. Man, I really wish that Donald Trump was mad at me, because he's letting them do whatever they want. I mean, things have increased. The bombing has increased. It hasn't stopped. How can we honestly sit here and say that Donald Trump is putting fucking Israel and Netanyahu on a leash? Matt, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, no, it's even worse than this, because the idea that we have the 500 martyrs over the last 3 days, when that ramp up first started, when Netanyahu said, "I don't care if Trump's mad at me, I'm going to do this anyways." That first 24 hours, we had that, like, and this was during Nakba, so we were literally at the 77-year mark of when Israel's invasion first happened, and you're doing this ramp up. 100 people plus killed in that first 24 hours. What we saw was a Zionist, one of the head Zionists in Israel, went on an Israeli news station, and the newscaster asked him a question about some logistical thing, and he interrupted her and said, "That's funny. That was your first question to me, and it wasn't, hey, what about the 100 people we just killed? Isn't it funny that you didn't even ask me that? Because the world got so desensitized to what we're doing." And he gloated and laughed about it. That's the most disturbing part of all this, is that as half of MAGAs aren't paying attention to any of this, or they don't want to know that any of this is happening, and then the other half of the voters who voted Democrat, no matter who, they don't have any idea that this is happening either. That as it's happening, they're gloating even more and saying the world isn't even paying attention and isn't even calling us out on this, as we're watching this fake ass divorce or breakup of these two leaders. It's pathetic. It's disgusting. And I don't know where the voices in the West are about this, because they're telling us on TV, they're telling us, you guys don't even care that we're doing this.
I like the fake ass divorce. I can't believe some of the people who really bought into this. I just want to point out how full of shit Donald Trump is too, as well, what he's playing a part, because he says one thing and the actions are completely different. Now, let's not forget, he was going over to the Gulf states. These are monarchs. These aren't democracies. There's no voting going on in Qatar for a leader. There's no voting going on at the UAE, right? United Arab Emirates. These are like the rich Gulf states that have done business with the West, Saudi Arabia, for quite some times. It's not like he's going to these other nations. If he's really on a peace building mission, he should be going to Iraq, Iran, right? These other countries, advocating for peace. Instead, it's just all about business and money for him. And what he comes out of his mouth is totally different than his actions. Listen, and I don't know who's writing the speeches, fam, because somebody wrote this over here, because this could be written by a fucking anti-imperialist leftist. Listen to Donald Trump, one of his speeches, a part of his speech in Saudi Arabia. I mean, he used all the buzzwords, and he's kind of implying, the old regimes of Bush and with them, what they failed, and trying to position himself as someone different. Play this one here.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions and charting your own destinies in your own way. It's really incredible what you've done. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves. Peace, prosperity, and progress ultimately came not from a radical rejection of your heritage, but rather from embracing your national traditions and embracing that same heritage that you love so dearly.
I mean, how full of shit could he be? Homeboy has been going around the freaking monarch states selling billions, if not trillions of dollars of weapons that were used by the Saudi Arabia regime for many years to go bomb Yemen and kill all these people, the worst famine in the world, continuing to occupy parts of Syria. We saw the oil, we took the oil, we're taking the oil, stripping of them. You had Vanessa Billy on many times to talk about them, stripping of them of all their resources and starving that countries out, setting up the conditions in which Assad was removed, because they were so beaten up and damaged because of Donald Trump's administration while he was in office. I mean, doing bombing at the behest of Israel left and right. I don't know who wrote this speech, but to me, it's so full of shit because the actions are so different. The United States still has military bases all over that region, and yet this guy's talking about, oh, you know, the George Bushes, the nation builders, you know, they wreck more nations. But what are you doing over here? I mean, your idea of the peace process, and from what I also read too, is that he was trying to re-dig up the Abraham's Accords, and they were like, listen, we're not going to even talk about that. We're not going to recognize Israel until they stop the bombing in Gaza. So, I mean, once again, this guy thinks he can just fool anybody or talk about anybody, but how full of shit is that fucking speech over there? It was written by somebody good, because the words are actually good, but once again, the actions don't fit the rhetoric. Go ahead.
Just real quick, I just want to say, like, this is very much what we see going on in media. It's like a little bit of a switcheroo, a little bit of criticism here and there. This is manipulation. It's controlled opposition. That's what Trump is. You're right. The speech renders itself a little bit, you know, anti-establishment, let's say, but it's really not, because he's talking to Saudi Arabia, who the U.S. has pursued in an effort to destabilize and isolate Iran. That's the whole point of the Gulf. That is why Assad isn't here, because he was actually pushed to normalize relations with the Gulf. And he really started doing it a little bit, but he wouldn't normalize relations with Erdogan. And the reason they want him to normalize relations with the Gulf is because that would weaken Iran. And this is all in the Abraham Shield plan, which I will show in a second. But part of this whole reason is because Donald Trump knows who he's speaking to. He knows he's speaking to the Saudis, who still at some level have a desire to establish a Palestinian state, because in spite of them being largely Sunni, and in spite of the fact that they haven't always been looked on as actual friends of the Palestinians, due to their lack of action, due to their subservience to the Zionist entity and to the United States, they still have advocated, at least vocally, the establishment of a Palestinian state. So Donald Trump is saying these things to them, to placate the audience of most people in these regions, because even if the leadership are full of cowards and that aren't going to do anything, a lot of people still in the Arab world do want the establishment of a Palestinian state. So that's why Donald Trump is saying this. And he's also differentiating himself from the what's become popular to hate, which are the globalists, the liberals, the neocons. Oh, I'm different than they are. Yet at the end of the day, the foreign policy remains largely the same. And that's what people need to look at. It is very obvious to those of us who always do that. But if you're just going to let yourself get carried away by this rhetoric and not actually look at the actions he's not following through with, then you're just constantly going to be behind, right?
Yeah. I do want to say really quickly, Matt, before you take the microphone, that I want to say that I think that, and Fee, you can back me up or not back me up, the reason why you have MBS, you have the leaders of the UAE stating that they want a Palestinian state, is because the hardliners in their country also are demanding it. The clerics in their country are demanding it, that they stand up for these Sunnis. So at the end of the day, MBS and, the leaders, the monarchs in Qatar or the UAE, I don't think they're as much concerned with getting a Palestinian state as they are doing business with the West. That's what they really want. But they have to say that because also they are monarchs and they don't want people overthrowing them in their country. Maybe a cleric, a religious movement might get out of hand and try to overthrow them. I doubt, but I think they have to say those things. So that's why they do push for a Palestinian state. But at the end of the day, these are, once again, the rich monarchs. There's no democracy going on in those three countries he went to. There's no elections going on, right? They're just the monarchs who are doing business, who have enriched the oil and took the money for themselves. Yeah, their nations live good because they get a lot of money and a lot of good toys in these small countries. But they have to have these lines. Matt, do you have anything to say before I show you the next couple points to show more of Donald Trump being full of shit?
Yeah, let me take a guess on who wrote that speech. We talked about what a great speech. I'm going to go all in and take a gamble that it was the same person who wrote Obama's speeches after he was given the Nobel Peace Prize when he first came into office. And it was the good face he put on and the good presentation to say, we're going to move forward. And then we were like, well, are you going to hold anybody accountable from the previous administration? No, that's not how I do lawyering. I look ahead. I don't look behind. And then meanwhile, he's upping 2 illegal wars and, to 5 additional wars. And then going on to bringing Hillary Clinton in and then taking out Gaddafi. We know the list. It's a mile-long list, but it's about that presentation to show that there's this attempt. And the verbiage it sounds so nice and so it feel good. So we're back to the feelings, and that's what Trump is doing. And this is a reversal. I never thought I'd live to see this reversal, but it does make sense because the parties have switched. The Trump team coming in is about getting things back to a position where the rest of the world can be proud of America again and look good and feel good. It's exactly the same thing. It's Obama 2.0. We talked about this on our show tons of times, but this is a clear example of great presentation. Yeah. But like you guys both said, it's business as usual. You just got to look at the actual policy, not the words coming out of the mouth.
Well, you want to talk about policy. He's talking about peace and prosperity. And Jayme, get the next clip up, get the next thing up. If you're talking about peace and prosperity, no, the next one. If you're talking about peace and prosperity, right? Maybe deterrence or creep. U.S. forces quietly surge back to the Middle East. The military has significantly expanded its footprints, spurring questions about strategy and sustainability. That's at the end of April. They have more troops there for the first time. In the largest amount of troops in the Trump administration have now moved back to the Middle East. So why is he moving them back there? Is he getting ready to fight another Israeli war? If you're all about peace and prosperity, go to the next article too as well. Not only do you not want to send so many American troops and occupy the American bases there, why do you want to sell Qatar more weapons, right? Here we are again, selling Qatar a $42 billion investment. I don't know, fam. It just seems like more of the bullshit. That speech doesn't mean anything when you see these actions, selling weapons all over the place, right? Putting more troops over there, continuing to do these proxy fights and battles for Israel. Fam, I don't know. You give me your opinion about this. That speech was beautiful, but it was nothing but horseshit coming out of his mouth because it's not true.
And it wasn't that great, Pasta. I mean, he's saying a lot of the correct terms that people get swayed by. It works if you haven't been paying attention to that strategy being used everywhere that's captured, not just captured politicians, but captured media as well. I think that the reason Trump is doing this is because we're going to see the era of normalization take place. We're talking about the countries normalizing. That's why I still feel like there will be some sort of settlement in Ukraine for the time being. And I think we're seeing this in Trump's rhetoric and where they're pushing towards, because you have to remember Russia has a relationship with Saudi Arabia. They've opened a relationship with Syria. They were among the first to recognize Jolani. They have maintained their bases in Syria, and they have expanded some bases in Libya. I want to show specifically the Abraham Shields plan. I want to remind everybody why Saudi Arabia, why Qatar, why the Gulf. If you put this up there, Jayme, I'm sharing the screen. If you can, there it is. Okay, great. So I just want to remind everybody that what they're discussing, perhaps the building of a Palestinian state, perhaps allowing Israel to the de-Hamasification of Palestine, of all of these areas. They want to get rid of Hezbollah. They want to get rid of Iran, the resistance. That's what they call getting rid of Hamas, right? They're talking about promoting a comprehensive ceasefire and exchanging the hostages and having the IDF mostly leave with the U.S. in charge. This has been talked about numerous times. And I think if we were to get anything, it would be something like this, where Donald Trump and Jared Kushner can still build real estate there in exchange for a BS establishment of what will be called some sort of Palestinian state. And this is where people shouldn't get duped, because this is part of all of that, right? This is how Israel's going to be working this out, and they're going to be using the Gulf to continue to drive this, because I think there won't be a possibility of just erasing Gaza. I think what they're going to try to do, which is in my opinion much more effective, is give a sliver of nothing, of a controlled faction to Palestine, and try to position that and present it as a Palestinian state, which it will not be, because it will be controlled by Israel. It will be driven and economically moved by the United States and the Gulf. And it will be an attempt to shut up the population that's really upset about Gaza, to stop caring about it, because look, we gave you what you wanted. We established a Palestinian state. And the other thing that's not brought up is the fact that Netanyahu is increasingly unpopular. He's increasingly becoming unpopular with his own people, with his own government. And I think that very much like Zelensky, in the near future, we could see Netanyahu go away and be replaced by somebody else. But make no mistake that this plan, in attempts to reconstruct Gaza, to create a Palestinian enclave that's pretty much what we had before, and pass it on as a sovereign state, is going to be the push. And unfortunately, the Gulf states, the Arab Gulf that doesn't care, as you mentioned, Pasta, really about Palestine, will lend itself and has lended itself to establishing this. And I think that's what they're aiming for. They're not really going to aim for a legitimate Palestinian state. And so I think people are being largely duped, and they will continue to be duped by that.
You talk about the way people are duped, and they really are. And, you can make the argument, Trump people, right? The Democrats, the old Republican guard that, they want to establish as different, but yet it's still the same people behind the scenes. Rubio and, Lindsey Graham are in Turkey. It's still the same people. Still the neocons. But they want to act like Donald Trump is different. The argument they always make is that Donald Trump is a good businessman. Like, we've done bad business for so long, and they'll okay the justification of selling weapons and troops and bases in the area because Donald Trump is doing good business. I had to bring this. I sent this to you yesterday, but the Trump administration is making clips of their trip of going on, and the way they sell this to the American voter and the Trump supporter, and they're out there sharing this stuff, it drives me crazy. Watch the whole tone and sentiment. I sent this to you yesterday.
You're an amazing country. You're a rich country.
You're rich.
You have your choice, but I know you'll never leave my side. And you know the special relationship that we have and our country has. We have now, I think, substantially over $10 trillion of investment. And now when I add the 1.4 trillion, we easily break that number. We really appreciate your confidence and an investment. That's your biggest investment that you've ever made. And we really appreciate it. And we're going to treat you very, as you should be, magnificently. And you're a magnificent man, and it's an honor to be with you. Two countries also agreed to create a path for UAE to buy some of the world's most advanced AI semiconductors from American companies. It's a very big contract. This will generate billions and billions of dollars in business and accelerate the UAE's plans to become a really major player in artificial intelligence. So it's a great tribute to the job you've done here. I'm very proud to be representing the United States of America, and thank you all for being here.
I do think it's a little kind of creepy that they're ushering in the fourth industrial revolution and AI, and they're bringing the UAE and Qatar and Saudi Arabia along. That was Howard Lutnick, by the way, who was part of Donald Trump's transitional team. He is the president of Cantor Fitzgerald. No conspiracy there. He happened to be out of the building that day that the planes hit the building. I don't know if you know the story about that. My cousin, one of my closest cousins, and one of my beloved cousins, who was known as one of the great cousins in my family, and a big Italian family on my father's side, was the vice president, one of the vice presidents for Cantor Fitzgerald. And he went in that day to cover for Howard Lutnick, supposedly, so Howard Lutnick can bring his daughter to the first day of kindergarten or something. I didn't get, that's one of the stories. My cousin normally didn't work at the time, but he happened to be in the building, and we lost him on that day. But people always question why Howard Lutnick wasn't there. Not going to bring it to conspiracies, but he was over there signing a deal with the AI, parts and machines over there and ushering that in. But I don't know why people are so mesmerized by Donald Trump going over there and doing business with monarchs. How is that going to help the American worker over here? How is that all these billions they're going to defense contractors? They're going to big businesses. It's not going to make money back over here. And like I said before, fam, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, there's no elections going on there, guys. These are monarchs. These are authoritarian governments. They're supposed to be everything we stand against. And yet he's praising them, and people are sharing these videos. Your thoughts, guys?
Well, I'll just say there's two things I take from this. And, one went right over most Americans' heads when you're like, the fact that these deals are even happening, the Trump and Saudi Arabia making these deals. We have and you mentioned 9/11, Craig. I would say that this is a big reveal that it's always been business. It's always been this from the beginning. So there's a lot of people that think, oh, he's a traitor. Trump's a traitor to even talk to them, because I've seen a meme going around circles here. It's pretty ridiculous. The inability of some people to see what's really happening here. And they're like, the last time in the meme, it says like the last time we were gifted a plane, because remember, I guess they gave Trump a plane while he was there, one of the gifts. Last time we were gifted a plane, it ended like this. And it's from Saudi Arabia, and it's the plane going into the Twin Towers. And it was like, well, if anything, this is a reveal of how again, not to be going down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, but the point is that this demonstrates to us that it's always been a company meeting. It's always been about the business. And I think the big takeaway from this is that Saudi Arabia was supposed to be part of BRICS. That's the thing. So this is all designed to, and you say this, Craig, this is very true. This doesn't help the American worker at all. Trump can spin it and say art of the deal, success, but this is for, as the empire is falling, this is us going out kicking and screaming. And something like this is only to help the oligarchy, only to help the deep state that he's apparently challenging. This is how you hold on to that just a little longer, and you make a deal like this. And this is kind of an FU to BRICS, because they were supposed to be part of that. So I wonder the response from Putin on something like this, because we haven't heard him say anything about this deal at all. And I wonder if it came up on the phone call today with Trump. Interesting, but I think of that. But those are that's what's really happening here when I watch that video. But yeah.
And the distraction porn about people arguing about the $400 billion plane that would be given to Donald Trump that he would use, and then eventually go to his library, to see some podcasters or independent journalists talk about that story and hating on the Democrats for being idiots about it. I mean, it's literally taking the bait and the distraction porn about what's going on. It shouldn't be allowed. It's against the emoluments clause, but I mean, Donald Trump is going to have hotels in the UAE and Saudi Arabia and casinos and Qatar. And after he's been building there, he's going to, after Jared Kushner gets the Gaza Strip, and they put up the condos over there. But people buying into the whole conversation about that jet, that's another thing. Why are you talking about something so insignificant, and you're not talking about what's really going on over there? It was sad to see people talk about that too, fam. Final thoughts before we get off this section here.
Well, I mean, it's Saudi Arabia. This is nothing new. I mean, Saudi Arabia were the ones that have been going after Ansarallah. Saudi Arabia are the traitors by many in the resistance. They are among the biggest complete bootlickers of the Zionist U.S. empire. I mean, they're not looked on as anything positive by the majority of people in West Asia whatsoever. This is not seen as a good thing by the majority of people who know anything about, the Middle East or West Asia. It is, in fact, an actual confirmation of what Trump's policy is, and that is to really have the Israeli involvement in there, because Saudi Arabia has continuously worked with Israel in all efforts against Iran, and that's its role. That's the reason Saudi Arabia is even in the position it is. That's the whole purpose that it serves. It serves the purpose of isolating Iran, of turning people and the region against Iran in favor of selling out to the Zionists. They are looked on as complete and total traitors. And in the same way that we're going to see, that we've seen, for example, how Mahmoud Abbas, the president of Palestine, is already captured by Israel, there's really no difference. And I think people who are falling for this are largely Trump supporters that want to give Trump the benefit of the doubt, or anybody that thinks that, for example, praising Trump for this is going to get them some sort of clicks online. It's one or the other, where people like, genuinely believe it, or where they're literally just like trying to get some sort of clicks. Because if you look at what's the foreign policy of the region, Saudi Arabia and has always had a relationship with the US. They were offered a BRICS membership in 2023, and they were hesitant. They're still assessing if they're going to join it or not. But I think, to Matt's question, to answer that question, I don't think Russia cares about it, because they're also seeking to have an economic relationship with the United States. They have an economic relationship with Saudi Arabia. They just met with some in the Middle East, are constantly having meetings. I think Lavrov is meeting with Azerbaijan in the next few days. I mean, this is a different world, where we're seeing, it's not necessarily that BRICS is in opposition. It's more of like BRICS is just showing us how the world is going to be dominated by more world powers than just one. That doesn't mean that equates into some sort of equity within the states that are smaller. And I think a lot of people have misrepresented that in their head, that it means like all these countries are going to have justice and be equal. Well, you can't have that when you still have Gaza, when you have Palestine, when you have a living Holocaust happening and nobody's doing anything about it. I think Sam Husseini posted something earlier today on X about how, China should get involved, because there was this post going around that China gave all of this aid to Gaza, which was false. That didn't happen. And then people started asking, why hasn't China done anything? Why hasn't Russia done anything? Like, oh, well, they're fighting a war. They're facing sanctions. I'm like, well, Yemen's Ansarallah has been at war forever. They're facing sanctions. They're facing being bombed and droned by Washington and Israel. And they're still doing what other countries much more powerful and rich aren't doing. And I think we have to understand that if anybody wishes to be hands-free, guilt-free of this genocide, these major power players should actually do something. They should actually do more than just talking about UN resolutions that are getting nowhere, really. Like, this is not stopping. Israel will not be stopped. And anybody that thinks that the US is going to break up with Israel is delusional and outright ignorant.
Yeah. And the same thing goes for the Gulf states. They're going to, what I'm saying? The Gulf states will turn a blind eye on what Israel's doing. You know what I'm saying? They have. Once again, it's Yemen who's stepping up to the table. Any final thoughts, guys, on Donald Trump being full of shit?
I have a final thought on Jayme's comment. Jayme, this is what Jayme said. Jayme, I'm going to yell at you today. It's not going to be pasta. I'm going to yell at you today. Jayme said, I think it's a big deal to hear those words coming out of the mouth, what Trump was saying in that speech, of an American president, even if he doesn't know what he's talking about. Here's the thing. I have a problem with that statement, because so what? So what? How many times did Obama make a great speech? How many times did XYZ president make a wonderful speech? What good has that gotten us and the rest of the world from the great speeches that they made? Is that speech going to change the minds of the American public hearing it? Or are the people that already support him going to go and clap anyway because they're looking for something to clap about? Like, this is, it does absolutely nothing except continue the illusion that he is going to do something different than what the status quo has been. I would love for him to do something different, But the reality is that's not true. So why do I want to hear more lies? I don't understand like why that's such a good thing. I think it would be better if
Yeah.
there was a flat out honesty about it all. I just don't see how this is
Yeah.
positive in any way.
Because the bullshitting keeps perpetuating the same fucking behavior and the same actions. But let's let the king of the straw man argument come on in and tell us why he thinks it does help in some way. Jayme, get your best bullshit face on and get in here.
First of all, you need to learn what a straw man argument is, because a straw man argument is when somebody accuses you of believing something you don't believe, and then they argue against that point. And that is not what I'm doing here at all. So, but
you really believe your bullshit? I do apologize. Go ahead.
No, I'm not accusing you of believing something and then arguing against it. That is what a straw man is. No, I do think it's a big deal to have an American president come out and actually condemn the neocons. Like, even if he doesn't mean it,
having a bunch of neocons in his administration, and
I know, but it's shocking to hear those words come out of the president of the United States' mouth.
Yeah,
because
I don't believe you really believe that bullshit there, Jayme. That's why I keep saying
no,
it.
To have those words come out of the president's
good.
mouth is shocking, because the president, at least for the last 50 years, has been basically doing the will of the neocons for my entire adult life.
Yeah, but Obama had the same arguments and the same things that Fiorella talked about, hope and change and peace. And then
you're right, it doesn't change anything, but the fact that the president actually said it, I think that actually does matter.
So were you just as excited back in 2020 with the CARES Act when Bernie and AOC made those incredible speeches about how horrible it was right before they voted yes on it? Did that also make you warm and fuzzy there, Jimmy?
No, it doesn't make me warm and fuzzy.
We don't know they voted for it. It was a voice act. It was a voice act.
Right.
I said he doesn't know what he's
good.
talking about. I don't think he knows what a neocon is, to tell you the truth. But I just think somebody in his administration wrote that speech and he read those words. I mean, we need to know who wrote that speech.
But why? But why are they doing that? Like, that matters.
That's what I want to know. That's why I think it's a big deal that
you don't know why they're doing that.
Came out of his mouth.
True. So you'll feel good. That's why.
It's not about feeling good. It's saying
on you.
There's somebody inside this administration that has power that actually feels this way, and is there. They have some sort of influence if they're able to write this speech. I don't think they wrote this speech to placate people.
It absolutely is to placate people, because if it was more than that, they would actually be taking actions.
If he was written to placate people, he would have been giving it to the American people. He wouldn't have been giving it in Saudi Arabia.
There's a genocide going, and they want to go to war with Iran, and there's a war with Russia. Like, what exactly? Where's the non-neocons then? If Donald Trump isn't a neocon,
I'm not saying he's not a neocon.
I mean, what's going on with the world right now?
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. All I'm saying is the fact that American president had those words come out of his mouth is shocking. Because
by the way, I believe that Stephen Miller wrote it too,
neocons there my entire adult life.
Yeah. There's no guy who's more full of shit in the Trump administration than Stephen Miller.
Oh yeah,
he was arguing to suspend habeas corpus the other day. And by the way, you're wrong. A straw man argument is a type of logical fallacy where someone misrepresents an opponent's argument.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I said. If
often by exaggerating or simplifying it, and then attacks you do this all the time. You have straw man arguments.
No. You're misrepresenting the opponent's argument. You're accusing your opponent of believing something they don't believe, and then you argue it against that point.
No, you just misrepresent you misrepresent the opponent's argument. You're twisting
that's what I said.
No, that's not what you said.
You make up something that your opponent believes, and then you argue against that thing that they don't believe.
You misrepresent them. Okay,
what's the difference, Pasta?
Okay,
there is no difference.
I know that's
now
what
I'm doing the straw man tactic myself over here.
You might be doing the straw man yourself there.
Now I'm doing it myself, right here. I am.
I'll give Jayme credit. I don't think it was a straw man argument, but it is definitely something he's doing. It's just not that. We got to look at the definitions and get the semantics right here. But
I just disagree with you guys.
When we say
out of his mouth, that's all.
What he says has no bearing whatsoever, and you say no, it does. It does matter. That's why I considered it a straw man argument, because you're misrepresenting what I'm saying. I'm saying, no, it doesn't.
No, I'm
You're like,
not.
no, it
No,
does.
I'm
have to."
disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm not misrepresenting what you're saying at all.
All right. Well, get off the
Okay, he
screen.
just
You
agrees.
don't. You and I have a different opinion here. That's not a straw man.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, continue.
All
It's
right.
an honest
Well,
disagreement.
Jayme,
which
you're
is what
wrong.
this is about.
Sorry. Sorry, just had to get that in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get to the last section, because we're here almost.
Oh, there's a
almost
last
2 hours.
section.
There's one. It's a quick one, and I just want to go over it. So, there,
Okay.
a lot of people moved to Florida after COVID because, and they praise mainly DeSantis for the reason, right? Like, because DeSantis didn't lock down the city, yada yada yada. But DeSantis was wrong, and a lot of us pointed it out that until he got a certain surgeon general, excuse me, in Florida, things were different. And when this Surgeon General came on, everything changed. We even have a clip of Ron DeSantis telling people, "Hey, listen, you need to get the shot. Most of the people who are dying are either vaccinated or partially vaccinated." He said that out loud, and he was urging people to get the shot. But then everything changed when this guy came in. This guy's name right here, Joseph A. Ladapo, MD, right? He was the Florida Surgeon General. When he came in, there was such a change of the whole COVID protocols, the rhetoric, the mask. This guy pretty much is the guy who made Ron DeSantis. Now, there was a lot of talk that he would be the Attorney General, right? The Surgeon General, excuse me, for Donald Trump's administration. A lot of people floated his name. And we have Mary Talon Bowden's tweet. If you want to bring that up there, you can bring that up. And she shows why. That next one, yeah, this one here, Jayme, yeah, that one. This is the man of integrity. Now, this is going back to beginning of January, and I just want to read what he did in the beginning of January. The Florida State Surgeon General calls for a halt in the use of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. On December 6, 2023, State Surgeon General Joseph A. Ladapo sent a letter to the United States FDA Commissioner Robert M. Califf and Center for Disease Control and Prevention Director Mandy Cohen, oh my God, regarding questions pertaining to safety assessments and the discovery of billions of DNA fragments per dose of the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. The Surgeon General outlined concerns regarding nucleic acid contaminants in the approved Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 mRNA vaccines, particularly in the presence of lipid nanoparticle complexes and simian virus 40, the promoter enhancer DNA. Lipid nanoparticles are an efficient vehicle for the delivery of the mRNA and the COVID-19 vaccines into human cells, and may therefore be equally efficient vehicle for delivering contaminant DNA into human cells. The presence of SV40 promoter enhancer DNA may also pose a unique and highlighted risk of DNA integration into the human cells. Now, the reason why I brought this up, and I know we have some people who are probably watching from the RFK crowd. There's a reason why guys like this won't hold office, and they'll never let him be the Surgeon General, because he'll put up he'll put his money where his fucking mouth is. And this is what a lot of people expected RFK to do. So this is why a lot of people now are recognizing, talking about why Ladapo will not be the Surgeon General, because he'll do moves like this. Meanwhile, RFK, who was supposed to talk against the MMA, who was supposed to talk about the COVID, it's still part of the vaccine schedule, has turned his back on it, and he's doing exactly what the establishment wants him to do and Big Pharma wants him to do. There's a difference between the two, while RFK is in his position and this guy is not. And this is the guy, fam, who changed all DeSantis around. It was this guy. It wasn't DeSantis was talking bullshit until this guy got in, and this guy changed everything. And now he's getting snubbed to be the Surgeon General today. That's why.
Well, it's not surprising.
That's all I got to say there. That was the small segment I just wanted to put up because, yeah.
Well, I can add on to that, because we saw the actual Surgeon General Casey Means be nominated.
Yes.
And Casey Means the same, and Dr. Mary Talon Bowden, she's been on fire, on point on how the Maha movement has been infiltrated, And you know, some say that's a harsh take. It's not really infiltrated. It's just there are good people trying to maneuver it just right. And Trump has to be careful, and it's an incremental change and all that. We've heard all that shit. That's not what's happening here. The reason why you can't have the Surgeon General of Florida in there is because of his focus specifically on vaccine safety, specifically on mRNA technology. This is the stuff that goes against Trump's administration. As we know, he made the deal with Ellison on day 2 or 3. We're talking about $1 billion deals where you're talking that I think it was a star technology that's going to be life-saving stuff where we're mixing AI technology,
mRNA vaccine, mRNA vaccines.
So you can't have Maha exist in that same realm that counters that mRNA money-making scheme that is obviously, we all know it's what it does to people. I mean, I'm not saying it, other people say it, but because we don't want to have a problem here.
We know what it's not, Matt.
We know what it's not. But the main thing is, and this is why Dr. Bowden is so on point on this, and we actually plan to have her on. We've reached out. She's going to come on Homeless Left next week or the week after. We're going to have a discussion with her directly. What she talks about is that the Maha people that are being assigned, people like Casey Means, these are people who are pushing the health part of taking on big food, big pharma, but not challenging the actual technology that they're making billions and billions of dollars on. So they're great at speeches about how we have to be better with our health and really look at the diet of our children and the diet. So these are the focuses it's going to be. And RFK Jr. has admitted this, that he doesn't have the flexibility that he thought he was going to have. He's told people in small circles. He's told our friend, I guess it was Steve Kirsch, who has admitted to us. He said it at a Mickey Willis movie screening here in LA just a few weeks back. He said that RFK is telling him, I don't have the leverage I thought I was going to have as HHS director. So here we are. We look, we're going to get pushback for talking like this because the Maha people that they're gonna applaud at everything that RFK Jr. does and say, oh, it's another incremental step. They're gonna come at us and say we're being Debbie Downers. Well, we're not being Debbie Downers. We're being realists, and we're seeing that the Maha movement has in fact been infiltrated, and we have to call this out. And Casey Means, her brother Callie. These are people that we can't really trust because they won't say out loud. They just refuse to say that the mRNA technology needs to be pulled from the shelf immediately. Not looked at, not studied longer, not investigated, pulled from the shelf because we have the data to prove it right now that it needs to go.
Yeah. And I know I have to reach out to Brooke Jackson, the whistleblower. I know she was I think that she had her case from the FDA stopped. In other words, they're not going to go forth with going after Pfizer. I have to reach out to her, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the scenes. And you just mentioned is, they're not going to stop all this, all this technology and all this money go through. And Donald Trump is tied to this whole economy, right? He is, he's plugged into it. The people he's put in office, and he tried to run on that vaccine. He thought that vaccine was going to get him reelected. I mean, he is Operation Daddy Warp Speed no matter what. Anytime you want to talk about it, he is behind it. So it's really, it's kind of crazy to see a lot of this stuff going on because I would think it's very important right now today to nip this in the butt, to make the wrongs, the wrongs of yesterday and to correct them. But they're not doing that. They're going forth with the same thing. They have the same people in charge. Nobody's pushing back against the COVID vaccines. They're part of the vaccine schedule, right? The children's vaccine schedule is still the same. Nothing has changed. And a lot of people in the Maha movement were saying, well, listen, if we get some clean food for kids, maybe then it's worth it. But I haven't even seen that yet because that's a whole big thing about just changing. I mean, to get clean food to the kids, how much of the system you would have to change would be just overwhelming and ridiculous. I hope it could happen. Nobody praised Michelle Obama when she tried to do it. They hated on her. RFK says he wants to do it now. The conservatives are praising him, but where's it at? Where is it at?
Well, we can. Okay, look, the incremental change. You can actually spot a little bit of a little bone was thrown. So you do have RFK Jr. saying we did get I think it was the red 40 dye. We did get that out. Like that happened in the first 100 days. So that is a mini win. We can celebrate that, and that's a good thing. So that's something that we're catching up to Europe with, as far as what we're allowed to put in our crappy food. They're already crappy foods. We don't need extra stuff that's going to kill us even sooner. So that's incremental change. That actually happened. So, but at the same time, we're saying that's all we're going to get. We're not going to get anything as far as stopping the poisons in the vaccine and pulling these from immediately pulling them from the shelves, which needs to happen. That's not going to happen. And so Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, these are the very few voices that are vocal about this, call this out. She like a handful of others, we need to hear them and give them the microphone at all costs, because those are the ones that were on this from day one. And I like that we talk about that, and Craig, you talk about that part too. Who was talking about this first, not later when it's more acceptable to talk about it? Who was doing it at the beginning when you weren't allowed to say anything about this? She was, and she turned down, like I think she says on record, $1.5 million in bribe money, which it was bribe money. You can call it bonus, you can call it COVID helping funds that you get if you gave this stuff to all your patients. And she said, no, I'm not doing it, and turned down that money. But so many other doctors took that bribe money. And so those are the type of things we look at, those people that said no from day one, from 2020, 2021. That's who we look at. But make no mistake, the only thing we're going to get as far as incremental change is going to be in the food vicinity, not in the vaccine vicinity, period.
Bam.
No, I'm all tapped out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Enough said.
No, I mean, I think the COVID rhetoric has kind of slipped away, and the eyes aren't on it as much. Like I said, I'm going to reach out to Brooke Jackson, talk to her about more of her case. With what I understand is that they're not going to go forth with going after the FDA or anybody who approved the vaccine, or nobody's going to be held accountable. And the sad thing is that most of the data we're looking at is Pfizer's own data. It exposes itself, right? You know what I'm saying? And how they cut the clinical trials short. They just hit up a couple rodents and said, let's go. This is good. They got qualified immunity. You couldn't sue them across the board. And, that was one of the things. And to see Nicole Shannon kind of push back against the Maha movement sometimes, with Kennedy and whatnot, saying this is not what's supposed to happen. I mean, everybody talks about these people getting into power because they're going to change things. But when they get there and they have to go along, play along to get along, most people or their supporters go, well, they have to do that. Well, then why did you want them there in the first place? Yeah. RFK, if he was serious about pushing back about the vaccine schedule and certain vaccines, I mean, a year ago, right, he was against the MMA, and then just recently had to write a whole article supporting it. He had to do a complete 180 on it. If he was more serious about taking on this industry and getting big pharma to lose their qualified immunity, meaning they have to be accountable for what they put out there and what goes in people's body, right? And they can't be, and they could be sued, right? And he was going to fight for that. He'd be doing better outside the administration than just going in and capitulating the way he is. Like I said, the reason why I brought that up with what Mary said is because she has been on point, right? Yeah. And, there's a reason why Lapido is not going to be the Surgeon General. And Mary Talley Bowden had kind of pointed that out. And, we were talking about the person who is going to be now the Surgeon General. It's Casey Means. It's just like, holy shit. Like, what if Donald Trump was serious about going along with the medical freedom movement, and same with RFK, they would have pushed for Lapido. I mean, they would have pushed for him. And
let's remind the viewers, he's not the first one to get left out in the dust. How about Dr. Dave Weldon, who was supposed to be the CDC director? He got switched out too. Why? Yeah. His crime, and Dr. Mary talks about this too. His one crime was raising concerns about vaccine safety, which he's been doing for 20 years. That's the kind of guy you can't have in the position of CDC director. And so every once in a while we get something that looks like it's a good thing. Did you guys know that there's this job? I guess I don't know who created this job or how long it's been around, but it's chief medical advisor to Maha. That's an actual position. So they did put a doctor. His name is Dr. Malorta. Just got assigned chief medical advisor to Maha. The operative word in that is advisor. He's somebody who's just going to advise. He has no power other than advising. He's the only one I've seen in the Maha assignments who actually says we need to stop these shots. He's the only one. that actually got a position. But then you look at the position. What is that position? It's an advisor. He has no power other than advising.
Yeah. And, I was mentioning Nicole Shannon. She was really
It's
upset.
just a captured campaign. It's a captured.
Yeah.
I was just saying, it's a captured campaign, a captured presidency. So everything coming from it, whether it's the whole Palestinian talk or whether it's about, Maha, it's all about placating the audience. That's why the things are being said. It's PR. It's not, if you think they're not doing PR at every moment, this is Donald Trump we're talking about. This is a reality TV star that knows that all PR is good PR. All publicity is good publicity, even the bad one. So everything that they're doing with Trump is literally what I said would happen with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is they've captured all the independent homeless left, the independent thinkers, the people that wanted to actually create an opposition to the establishment. And so they knew that with the health movement, with making America healthy again, they knew that was a strong movement. So they put someone in there that they can, so you can feel like, okay, well, at least we're being heard. But it's literally crumbs you're being thrown, the same way that the liberals throw crumbs at, the semi-progressive left every time about XYZ issue. It's the same shit, but nothing tangible is ever going to happen when you have a captured system. It's not doom spilling. It's literally reality that we're talking about here.
And the Nicole Shannon we're talking about here, this Casey Means guy down here, once again, she's like, yes, it's very strange. Doesn't make any sense. I was promised that if I supported RFK and his Senate confirmation, that neither of these siblings would be working under HHS or in an appointment, and that people much more qualified would be. I don't know if RFK has clearly lied to me or what's going on. It's been clear in recent conversations that he is reporting to someone regularly who is controlling his decisions, and it isn't President Trump. With regards to the siblings, there is something very artificial and aggressive about them, almost like they were bred and raised Manchurian assets. And that's, once again, we got Means, and that's Nicole Shannon right there talking about that, exposing. You talked about when we had, what's his name on, Matt? Steve
Kirsch, yeah.
Steve Kirsch, and there's something going on behind the scenes. Somebody's controlling this whole situation. It isn't Donald Trump. And this is what I mean when these guys don't make decisions. There's guys, you must go higher, my son, above them, controlling all what's going on. But this is really a kick in the balls to the medical freedom movement, really, to tell you the truth. It is.
They don't like saying who that person is. Steve Kirsch didn't say who that person is. Nicole Shanahan's not saying who the person is. We know who that person comes from, and we know that we can't really say it. Sometimes in circles we can't totally say it, but we know it starts with the letter I and rhymes with Schmizriel. That's what we're talking about, really.
That's a tough one. I don't think I can get that.
I don't know if Shanahan understands that, but she is definitely saying out loud publicly on her social. She's saying that he's not in charge, and it's not Trump that's in charge either. She's saying both of those things in that tweet, which is very interesting.
And I think she's also displaying how much more effective you can be when you don't capitulate to the fucking power spectrum, right? Like if you don't get inside and you don't have to keep your mouth shut, what you can do outside can be even way more effective. And if RFK was serious about, the medical freedom movement, which he's completely betrayed, right? You know what I'm saying? He would have never taken the position where he's going to be muzzled the way he is, or, but once again, a lot of people feel that he is also compromised. We don't know by exactly who, but it begins with an I and it rhymes with Pisriel. So maybe you can figure who that is and stuff.
Or is Rahel?
Yeah, I saw it right. Yeah, right here.
See, someone's on my.
There we go.
Wavelength. There we go.
I would say it is Rahel.
That's right.
I'm going to trademark the Schmizriel. I haven't heard anyone else do that. That's my
trademark. You guys, that's it for today. We're over 2 hours and 10 minutes. We want to thank you for joining on in. We're going to try to do a show on Friday, depending on how I feel. If I'm not ill or not, we'll see. I've been under the weather. Matt's got his show tomorrow and Thursday, Homeless Left. Of course, go check that out. I do the show on Wednesdays on WBAI in New York, 4 p.m. Eastern. Go check it out. Anything else to say, fam? You got anything else coming out?
We're going to stream a special show too. On I don't know when we'll stream it, but it'll be probably Thursday. We'll probably show it. So look out for something. Probably not when Matt's show is going on, but before or after. So we'll let you all know.
All right, I have to show one last thing. Matt, you got anything to say before I show the one last thing?
Oh, just let people know I'm regularly on with Garland Nixon, so I don't have a time this week yet, but once a week we'll go on. He likes to hear the Hollywood perspective, or we should say Hollywoke perspective of all the stuff happening here. We missed out on some of the stories when we, sometimes there's only so much time we have in the day, as you guys can tell for just today's show. So I'll let people know that as well.
Okay, so like I said in the beginning of the show, that I believe it's all about having conversations, promoting discourse. Obviously, this show, we have some great discourse going on. We don't necessarily agree 100% on things, but we're all homeless, anti-imperialist leftists. I think that's kind of established. But, my radio show, I encourage Trumpers to call in. Anybody who disagrees with me, hardcore Democrats, call in, and we have great conversations. That's what I think it's all about. I think the cancel culture has been one of the most divisive tactics implied by the ruling class to keep us all separated. So if we're not talking at each other, we're just screaming at each other, we're divided. And that's one thing we can't be, because at the end of the day, I think we all agree that it's the ruling class versus the rest of us. It's the oligarchs versus the rest of us, right? Well, in light of hopefully of a network that was maybe coming back because it was going to end in 24 hours, I created a pilot. And what I created was a morning show that's going to last for about 2 hours per morning, Monday through Friday. I'm sick and tired of people having to work up the younger generation and have to either choose between Joe Scarborough, Fox and Friends, the tribalness, right? So what I created was a open discourse between 4 co-hosts in a morning show, all younger, good-looking, more charismatic, but different ideologies across the board. And promoting discourse. What I'd like to do is show a little clip from my pilot that we're going to put out there. Now, we're going to have all the social media. We already have a TikTok going. We have an Instagram. We have a Twitter. We're going to share that with you. We want to get a little buzz about this. But like I said, I created this whole situation where we have 4 different people. I'm the anti-imperialist left. I'm on the left side of the screen when we're all up there. We have an anarchist capitalist that Fam says doesn't exist, a libertarian in Tatiana Moreau. She's a singer-songwriter. You might remember her. She just sang at the first Rage Against the War Machine. She's amazing. We also had a lot of good laughs at the Libertarian Convention. Next to her is Courtney Turner, who leans a little bit to the right, but she's part of the Truther community, the Whitney Webb, the Miriam Hanen, all those people who look into governmental documents, look into, Bilderberg, the Trilateral Commission, Tavistock, when they have that kind of mentality. And then Gerard Michaels, who you see on the screen, he's the populist right guy. He's a comedian. He's really great. I met him at the Libertarian Convention. He used to work for the Blaze. I think he does work for the Blaze. So now you have all these different 4 people with 4 different ideologies having these great conversations, but doing it in an adult manner, in a young manner, a more enlightened manner. I just want to play a clip over here, and I hope you guys can go on over and follow all the social medias. We'd like to get a buzz going so that maybe somebody will pick this up, so we can get a really legit morning show that will represent more people in the morning rather than the old school red team versus blue team. So check this out. This is Wake Up America. This is Gerard Michaels. And we're talking about the whole deportation, due process. Is it legal? Is it not? Is it illegal? Is it moral? Is it immoral? This is a conversation we had. Here's a 46-second clip.
What due process did he use to come into this country?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be held to a higher standard than they. You understand? At some point, if you play by rules that other people don't play by, you're not noble, you're a sucker. And this is the game that the left has been playing forever, right? Like, oh, here's the idea. Oh, well, he's a citizen. He deserves this. He's not. He's an undocumented citizen. No, he's not. We can't just change the labels of things. We can't engage in a marketing and an empathy battle. Well, listen, buddy, you effed around and you found out. You didn't
right, but he didn't F around the way that they said, and then they just sent him to some random prison. That was the problem.
What he didn't F around the way they said, correct. But is he here illegally?
I think that's up to the courts to decide.
That's what the due process is.
Yeah. What due process did he use to come into this country?
And you can see the conversation gets very lively. There's a lot of talks. I mean, it's a great, that was the libertarian once again. Now, she leans when it comes to economics. She's a capitalist, right? But when it comes to other foreign policy and civil liberties, she's a libertarian. She's a Ron Paul libertarian. So she's very unique in that aspect, right? She doesn't believe in any central planning. Here I am, the anti-imperialist leftist who does believe in central planning, right? believes that Medicare is a human right. I don't think our system right now needs to have more money pumped into it. I'd like to see it redone because we have a sick care system, but that's something that she wouldn't believe in. And then Courtney, we didn't hear much from in that particular clip. She also has a lot of great things to say. We're going to be releasing these clips. We'll have like little small short form clips that you can go then link on to the YouTube channel we have and watch the whole segment. And the segments are about 20 to 24 minutes. We have one of the segments that was the deportation segment. Is it legal? Is it illegal? Due process, the whole situation where we had with that poor kid that got sent to freaking El Salvador and a judge said send them back, and the Trump administration encouraged Nayib Bukele to say no, and the kid's still stuck there. So we had a great conversation about that. It's a little evergreen because we want to always talk about how people feel about, immigration and deportation and that whole thing. We talked about peace through strength. We actually used Daniel McAdams came on to help us, and he was our guest. And we talked about, is it possible peace through strength? We talked about the Tesla protest and whether they should be classified as domestic terrorists. We also had a Bitcoin segment too as well, which is nice and evergreen. And it's just, I don't think there's anything out there like this, guys. I want to get a buzz going because we need to have this discourse. And when you have 4 different ideologies in one room together, you're going to have some intriguing, interesting conversation. And a lot of what people think out there is going to be represented, not what's going on with Fox and Friends, not what's going on with Joe Scarborough and Morning Joe. We need a new show. So please help us out. I'll put some of the links in the chat, and please go over, follow the social media. I'll be posting it up, guys. We'd love you to just go on over and help us on out. Let's get a buzz going and see if we can get this show out there. I will put the link in the chat, and I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Awesome.
Put it in there.
Good.
Anything else?
No, that's it, y'all.
You have no more Substacks coming out?
No, I do, but I did a recent interview with Beat Media, I believe. I shared it on my Substack. I talked about it's a deep dive on a lot of things regarding foreign policy, regarding Russia, China, all the stuff. So you all should really look at it because we destroy a lot of the a lot of shit and a lot of people. So it might be a fun one to watch. It was quite interesting.
Awesome. Do we have any love over on the Rockfin? I didn't even see. Is anybody over there? Is there 4 people watching on the Rockfin? Holy cow. Talk about a platform that's just kind of whittling away. It helped us out in a point when we got demonetized. We do appreciate that. But the guys, go on over to it's Hi Wake Up America, HI Wake Up America, double meaning. Go check it out. Please follow it. We also have a TikTok. We also have a Instagram. Johnny Tsunami, Fee's brother and the old school partner. He did helped out, directed it, helped produced it. And he also did all the editing and the cuts with his company Vision Setters. So there's a lot of good work out there. Like I said, I don't think there's much stuff out there like it. It's nothing right now. But we spent a few bucks on it to make it look good. And I think you'll enjoy some of the segments. And we'll continue to push that out there. But you can help us out by getting a buzz going right now because, unfortunately, there's not a lot of good shit out there anymore. It sucks.
Oh, can I make a little plug here for a win? We got a little win with the homeless lab.
Please.
And this is really important because it's our ongoing battle against the censorship industrial complex. And a lot of you guys might know that we had our YouTube channel terminated. That was last summer. And, we were just picking up momentum. We were just about to monetize and they knew it and they pulled us. Mm-hmm. And it was whatever they were saying, medical misinformation, they wouldn't come out and say it was Israel related, but we know that was part of it as well. So the idea was, well, what do we do now into this year? When this year started, I was like, you know what? Let's try it again. Let's just do kind of a burner account. So we started it's called THL Presents. We started it as a burner channel just to let them know we weren't going away, and I wasn't expecting much from it. Just to tell people about it. So fast forward 4 months, we've had the channel for 4 months. As of last night, we just got qualified for monetization on this new channel. This is a big deal. We've got no warnings, no strikes. I think for some reason we slipped by them. They don't know it's the same group for whatever reason. We've been very careful, but because of your guys' engagement out there, finding the channel, supporting the channel, we had one video blow up pretty good. It was the one we did on Gal Gadot, the film she's shooting in London and the protesting. It kind of took off. There's like 57,000 people engaging on that in a positive way. It's unbelievable the positive feedback we've gotten from the channel. So I want to tell everyone, find us now. We're going to be submitting for monetization. We're a little nervous about it because I think we might be red flagging ourselves in the process, but we got this far. We never thought we'd make it this far, but it's because of you guys out there that continue to understand that we have to fight against this censorship machine that's trying to stop us from having these type of conversations. So we're taking the little win right now, but it's THL Presents on YouTube. You guys can find us there.
Cool. Awesome. Congrats. Good
That's
to
it
hear.
for today, guys. And we'll have all the stuff that go up. You can go over to the Fred Edward just shared the YouTube right over there too as well. Go check that out. We shared the Twitter. We have a TikTok. We have an Instagram. Help us get a little buzz going. I mean, it really is. When you go over to YouTube and eventually when Johnny puts up the videos, I mean, these are just fascinating conversations. So yeah, I'm glad to see a lot of things going into work, Matt, with that. Getting that big bump on that video. I mean, we were talking about, remember, fam, when we were getting some of those big bumps on the Epstein videos and then all of a sudden they just sack you. I mean, they're awful. So we need all the help we can get out there, guys. You know, the independent voices. And I'm sorry, what we had talked about, we were very consistent. And, you know, it didn't bring me any pleasure. Well, maybe a little pleasure of proving those people who were kind of praising Donald Trump and kind of trying to make this thing bigger than it was, to show them that it's not. You know, to have the ability to do that and be on that right side. That's important because we can't get duped. We have to look at the actual actions and the policies that are taking place. We can't just listen to voice or rhetoric, because if we do, we're doomed. That's it for today, guys. That's the Truth Wire for Fiorella Isabel, Matt Weinglass, Jayme the Straw Man, CheeseSlice on the ones and twos. We just love him. Just kidding. We love you. I'm just kidding, Jayme. Stop shaking your head all disappointed. I'm Craig Pasta Jardula. True time. It's over. We'll see you next week.
Time.
We'll
It's
see you
not
next
true time. Bye.
Truth out.